Hello and welcome to Zwift World Series Open Qualifiers race number 2. In this round of the races, we will be happening on the peak performance route in Watopia. And today, we'll be watching closely to see which riders will be fighting hard up the grade to secure a spot in the elite races in 2 weeks' time. I'm Nathan Garrett, and joining me again this week is Dave Toll. Dave, are you ready for this?
Nathan, I really am. I can't wait for more racing action out in Watopia today. The first round saw some of the best racing we have seen on Zwift, and the qualifiers we followed back at the start of September gave some amazing opportunities for riders to race at the top level, with many of those riders securing series passes to race in the rest of the series. 7 men and 3 women earn spots for the elite races. So going into this qualifiers today, there'll be less spots available, but Nathan, there is still a lot to race for. Tons of opportunity.
That's absolutely correct, Dave. Lots of opportunity. It was great to see how the Zwift World Series have given both individuals and teams a great chance to shine. For those of you that are new to this series, each race in the Zwift World Series has its own open qualification pathway event where any Zwifter has had a chance to become an elite racer. Now, from the past race, Dave, what was your main highlight and takeaway?
Well, Nathan, I tell you, it was the process that I was so happy to see. It really was optimized to give racers from around the globe that legitimate opportunity to find out how they stack up against the world's best. So we saw amazing racing on both the men's and the women's side. But to be honest, it really, really validated what the Zwift World Series is all about, giving opportunity to everybody who wants to find out what the highest end of racing is like. How about you?
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to piggyback on there a little bit about the individual performances. What we saw in the elite race for the qualifiers, Liz Van Houweling making it just within the top 10. Maria Holcroft's go for that sprint preem to try and succeed at taking the preem and getting her series pass qualification. If you didn't see that in the women's race, make sure to go back and watch that first elite race. It was really great. Another one, the top 10 performance is a standout for me amongst the men to get a series pass in the top 10. Richard Berry, the Irish national champion, he really stamped his approval at that top level. Getting in through these qualifiers is one thing, but then showing up and getting the series pass with that kind of a result that we saw in the men's race from Richard Berry, that's a big one from Next Esports for sure. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Zwift World Series, we've got this great little explainer from Hannah Walker. Let's go ahead and check that out.
Each round of the Zwift World Series kicks off with the Open Qualifiers. These races are open to any Zwifter from any team who has completed the pre-verification process with no field size limits. All Open Qualifiers take place on the same course as the Elite race, and for Race 2, this is the peak performance route in Watopia. The races will take on a scratch race format, with the qualified riders progressing to the Elite race in 2 weeks' time. For Race 2, there are qualification spots for the top 19 men at the finish line and 23 spots available for the women. Here they will join series pass riders formed of 3 riders from 8 invited teams who placed the highest in last year's Zwift Grand Prix, and those who earned series passes in Race 1 to make a total field size for the elite race of 50 riders. Series pass riders do not need to go through any open qualifiers and can race all elite races in the Zwift World Series. In the elite race, there will be prize money at 2 preems, 1 sprint and 1 KOM, as well as prize money for the top 10 finishers. Riders who represent a team will receive points based on their best performing top 3 riders. Teams can try and boost their chances for this classification by qualifying as many team members as possible through the open qualifiers. In the Zwift World Series elite races, new series passes are available for any rider that do not already have them for coming in the top 10 or winning either preem. So any qualifier that performs well in the elite race can also punch their ticket to the rest of the series. There really is a lot at stake. Let's take a look at the overall series. There are a total of 5 individual races to look forward to, with 1 race each month between September and January. In addition to the prizes available per race, each event riders will also earn series points that count towards an overall classification. Race 1 happened in September in Richmond on the brand new Richmond Loop Around route. Race 2 in October will be in Watopia on the never-before-raced peak performance route. Race 3 in November will be in Yorkshire on the brand new Yorkshire Double Loops route, whilst Race 4 in December will be in Macquarie Islands on the brand new Shisa Shakedown route. And wrapping up the series, the final race in January will be the epic Queen Stage, with a finish on top of the Radio Tower climb in Watopia on the Power to the Tower route. There are also some great series-wide prizes. In the individual classification overall, there will be prize money for the top 10 and prize money overall in the team classification for the top 10 placed teams. And don't forget, the top 50 riders in the individual classification will also receive an invite to race the season-ending championship, the Zwift Games 2025 Elite Races.
Well, there you have it from Hannah Walker. What a great format we have coming up for this series. The second race for today's Open Qualifier will be on the Peak Performance route. The community had a chance to race this route in the Zwift World Series community events last week, but if you didn't get a chance to race it, let's take a closer look. Race 2 is a scratch race on the Peak Performance course. Before both the Open Qualifier and the Elite race in 2 weeks' time will take place on this course. The distance is 46.6 kilometers with an elevation gain of 730 meters. Starting in downtown Watopia, the route heads towards Ocean Boulevard, where it will pass the finish arch and then head over to Titans Grove, where riders will pick up the one and only power-up for this race, the draft power-up. The riders will head out to the southern coast towards the grade, turning right and heading up the steep climb, straight up for the first half, and then switchbacks for the second half. Once at the top of the grade, the climb is not over as they continue up to the epic climb summit and then descending starts down to the marina. The route finishes off the rolling roads towards the volcano, back into downtown Watopia, and towards the finish line just after the intersection for the hilly climb.
I absolutely love this route, Nathan. The grade is going to blow this race to bits, no doubt about it. It's really interesting. I mean, risk reward is going to be the big question out here. Do you want to toss your hat in the ring with the top climbers, or would you want to be a little more conservative and sit back in what's going to be a very strong chase group, I would think, as you come over the top of the grade, a long descent to the finish line, expecting to see some regrouping. So it's really going to be interesting to watch how individual riders want to play their cards out here. So 19 qualification spots at the finish line for the men. Nathan, I think it's time we take a look at the start list and see who we should be keeping an eye on out here today. What a start list this is.
The men are up first today, and there are a lot of familiar faces as well as a lot of new ones who have not seen this level of racing before, taking advantage of this new open qualification pathway. A name that I think everybody's going to have at the top of the list for getting a qualification today is going to be none other than Hayden Pucker, Farm Watts. Definitely a big name that's showing up here to be watching out for today, Dave.
Absolutely, Nathan. I'm going to throw James Barnes in the mix. This is a rider that is so well-rounded. If there's anybody who suits this course, it would be Barney today. Who else do you have your eye on, Nathan, as we get ready to race here?
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to the sprinters, Holden Camus, and as well as Jay Bruin. Watch out for them to try and hang on as we head into the climb. Let's take a quick look at the qualifying graphic here, Dave.
Yeah, so this is all going back to exactly what I'm talking about. These are notable qualifiers. The top 10 riders in today's field and their scores from the first elite race that took place just a couple of weeks ago in Richmond. These riders didn't get a series pass. They're going to need to qualify again. But boy, they've been animators and dictators out there. We'll see how it plays. Nathan, they're counting it down. We are seconds away from hitting out for 46.6 kilometers of racing. It's peak performance time.
And heading out on to the Watopia downtown from the piers, and we're going to be taking a left-hand turn on towards Titans Grove. It's going to be an interesting start, whether or not riders want to hit out right from the get-go. You know, I have a feeling there may be a few riders out here, Dave, that do want to make this very difficult right from the get-go, because the grade that's coming up, they may be able to get a little bit of distance, a little bit of time between themselves and some of those climbers that might be able to stick it to them later on in the race. So, Dave, I think Fast and Furious from the get-go at David Henderson showing exactly that.
Yeah, I would expect nothing less from this group, Nathan. Accelerator down on the floorboard. Might as well duct tape it there, but the American Henderson going to open things up. Good to see another Brazilian in our field. This is going to be Costa coming up and over the top. So they definitely got the memo about pushing the pace early out here. Nathan, we will be back racing. Obviously, this is our qualifier here today, so there aren't any preems or any of that. But it's really, really noteworthy that these riders with 46.6 kilometers of racing, 730 meters of climbing, and they've already decided to attack in kilometer zero. And there you go. This is a team we're going to be seeing a lot of today. You were talking about Hayden Pucker. Nathan, does he want to pull a Pogacar out here and tack from the bottom of the grade and take it to the finish line today? Is that even possible?
I wouldn't put it past a guy like Hayden Pucker. They call him Farm Watts for a reason. This guy is a tractor out on course. 6.2 watts per kilogram right from the get-go. 547 watts. We are seeing some of his Zwift Academy workouts. The guy is an animal. I've heard that this guy can put out well over 400 watts for quite a long time. Look at this. This is from the get-go making things crazy fast. We already have a little bit of a break group establishing, and people are going to want to get on this wheel to know, because this is a wheel that could get away, and if Hug comes over the top of that, that's exactly what they're going to want to see, these riders that want things difficult from the get-go. And Hug's going over the top here at 9 watts per kilogram, keeping the speed high. They've got 2 seconds on the group, I believe, already, but I think there's going to be some chasers and some teammates behind from other teams that are going to say, hey, we got to either put somebody up there in this break that's starting to go, or we need to shut this down and take all of the incentive out of them to want to make this break happen.
Nathan, this qualifier might be one of the best races on the planet this month, to tell you the truth, because here's the deal. If you can get in a 14 rider group that includes names like Nicky Hug, Carlos Flores would be a good example. We've already mentioned Hayden Pucker, and we'll be talking a lot about Farm Watts today. Well, you might be on the world's hardest group ride, but you're assuring yourself a spot in the big race, the World Series race, coming up in 2 weeks on this exact same course. So is that the conservative play or not? You can see everybody responding. Nobody going to sit back on their heels right now. This is so interesting, Nathan, with the quality of riders that we're seeing. And I haven't seen Barnes' name pop yet up here. That was one of my top picks here today. But Nathan, you had been saying that you watched him kind of bouncing around the pens. Did James Barnes ultimately take the start here today? I'm going to want to confirm that, because he is definitely one of my top 5 riders to watch. But it was a little bit touch and go, it looked like, at the start. He races down out of New Zealand for South Africa. But is Barnes out here? Not seeing him.
James Barnes, I believe, did make the start line. I think he's definitely out here today. So Barney, I think, making his way up toward the front end of the Padarias. Just saw him in the rider nearby list just a moment ago. So he's made his way back up into the top 10 area. We do see, again, the Brazilian, Rogério Costa. He tends to like to do this. He presses right from the get-go. His tactic is to make the racing as hard as he possibly can, it seems like. It wasn't able to get him, secure him any kind of qualification last time, I believe, here. But Costa here now making his way to the front, and I think he just wants to make the racing as hard as he can from the get-go. We're getting a little bit of response from Ewan Mackey here, covering that from next, presented by Insured here. Hayden Pucker there, third wheel as well, trying to make it with these moves as we take a look here at Barnes in the race for sure. There's his verified batch. A rider that we definitely want to see maybe make it through to the qualification. He's got the talent here. Can he do it, though, today?
No doubt about the talent, no doubt about the desire, and it's going to come down to early esports season. Does he have the form? This is so animated at the front, and here we go. Another group of riders going to attack. Every time something goes clear, it seems like Hayden Pucker is involved. The usual suspects certainly will include him. There's Thomas Perrin, who's been phenomenal out here. Definitely a rider to watch, Nathan, out of the United Kingdom. I mean, this is like a murderer's row that we're looking at. It is so hard to get, with so many strong riders back in the peloton ready to chase back anything, Nathan. Finding the right mix of riders to get in a breakaway is going to be incredibly hard to do, as it's just riders coming up and over the top here. They do have one power-up today, the draft power-up, that it'll be interesting to see how that comes into play. I think that you'll be tucking that in your jersey pocket for quite a while, Nathan, with that draft power-up getting very early distribution. I'd imagine that its usage comes in the finale. As we see now, Nikki Hug going clear. I have to say, Nathan, that Nikki is going to be in the break that goes clear today, obviously. Well, there's a new name that we're talking about more and more. Andrew Buffington riding up to the front of the group here, Nathan.
Good cover by Andrew Buffington. Put Buffington in the same category conversation as Nikki Hug. That is a massive jump. We'll see if Buffington can bring the pain later in the race, though. Now, I haven't seen anybody make any kind of serious commitment to these moves. We do see that Next Esports, they are kind of doing these little surges, though. And what you got to do on this climb in Titans Grove is you got to punch into the downhills and then up and carry that speed into the uphills, because it's such this undulating over and over again. If you don't time things right, you can kind of just waste a ton of energy actually on this section of course. It's really about carrying speed over the top of those little bumps into the downhills, resting at that just at that lower end of the downhill section, then punching it again up and over the top. Kind of like BMX riding almost in some ways. But, we're not really seeing anybody make any real commitment at this point. I thought Nikki Hug with those orange numbers for just a moment was trying to make something kind of a move. But at about 5 to 6 watts per kilogram, everybody in this field can really match it. We do see Schleulander now, the Swedish rider here, making a little bit of a move to the front to keep the speeds high, just to make sure he's set up right before they do hit the first KOM in just a moment. And this is going to be the real decision point if anybody wants to make some moves. And they will be collecting a drafting power-up at the top. It'll be a big question about when to use that. I think a lot of riders are going to be thinking about the sprint and the finishing straight for that draft power-up. I'd be saving it all the way to the finish line if I were anybody on this course.
I agree, Nathan. I really think it's interesting how early you get that power up, but I don't even think the riders will be tempted, because if you're in the mix, you're going to need that in the finale, no question. I mean, when you look at the big hitters out here, Nathan, the names that we've been talking about, I think that they've taken enough swings out here with the 20-pound sledgehammer, I guess the 10-kilo sledgehammer. They realize they're not having an impact. It's hitting a solid stainless steel wall out there as this peloton is resilient. I mean, take a look at this group. So if you want to compare some riders' efforts out here, those that have been attacking, they've been burning a few matches. Those sitting back in the peloton, like James Barnes, who hasn't put his nose in the wind yet, very experienced racer. I think the advantage has to go to Barnesy at this point, as just, keeping as many watts in the bank as you can. Who's going clear this time? It looks like it's Nichols and Van Erck who are going to take it. One of the things I love, Nathan, as we were talking about at the top of the broadcast, is you're going to see breakthrough riders. Someone's going to come out of the woodwork in every one of our qualifiers that we do. And these are two names that are relatively new to me in the world of esports. Certainly Rick Van Erck, the Nederlander here on the front. But, I mean, he's making 7.1 watts per kilo right now. This man is a human wattage cottage, and Nichols sitting on that wheel. And it's going to be another experienced rider, Shell Power, saying, nah, you're not rolling away from me right now, as he's going to animate things. Nothing significant about that arch. No bonification other than power-ups.
Yeah, it was interesting, a little bit of a punch there from Gel Power. It looked like it was a controlling punch at the end there. Nichols went at about the halfway point or so up that KOM and pushed about a 7 to 8 watts per kilogram. Now, only Van Aert came across from Wahoo. The pack kept them within striking distance for long enough that Gel Power came over the top, but there wasn't any acceleration on the other end. Now we do see Sjolander here, the Swedish rider, trying to get it up into 57 kilometers per hour. It looks like, no, it's only 51, then goes to 0 watts per kilogram, interesting enough. And as he does, it looks like that's going to bring the pack right back into his wheels. So I thought perhaps that was a little bit of a move, but you know, sometimes you look at the move and you go, okay, is this really going to do anything? Is this going to go anywhere? And it doesn't. He almost waited for the pack to get back on his wheel, interesting enough. Now up into 58. Is everybody else going to be able to really hang on to the wheel? And they will just fine. And so these little bit of a punches, interesting moves, not going much anywhere. I think it's going to calm down completely at this point as they descend off of Titans Grove. There are a couple of little undulations after they do this descent as they're leaving Titans Grove where you can throw down some big orange numbers and carry speed over the top, where the rest of the pack may relax and only go over the top at 5 kilometers per hour slower or so, and you can get some gaps at that point that you could carry into the coast on the flats and start to work with the group before the grade. Well, Sjolander again, these are interesting little kicks here that he's doing, you know, getting up into that 57. I wonder what the motivation is here for this.
Yeah, I think at this level, Nathan, the methodology of the riders is, you know, make your efforts have a value. And attacking right now, when you look at how things are being neutralized, it just doesn't really make that much sense. But again, it sort of goes back to that, you know, you watch 15 attacks go up the road with nothing sticking, and then all of a sudden something does happen. So you have to stay on your toes, that's for sure. But right now we've got a very attentive peloton, as one would expect. I think a lot of riders right now, Nathan, are looking at the grade and just trying to keep as much charge on their battery as they can right now. And I certainly wouldn't blame them as we take a great look at the peloton here. So many names, and we really haven't even mentioned Jasper Paradise yet. A man who could not only have a huge impact on this race, I mean, he could go into the race 2 weeks ago. And let's just quickly circle back as you take a look at this peloton, and what a great shot right there, as 19 of these riders will qualify to move into the World Series in 2 weeks. So this is going to be interesting how they sort things out. That's a relatively large group, Nathan. If you believe that you're a top 10 rider in this group and you have that level of ability, it probably makes more sense to be conservative, to tell you the truth, than be aggressive at this point.
Real move from Andy Nichols there, followed directly by Alexander Gagnon. Gagnon, definitely a rider that it's going to be interesting to watch here. He has been somebody ripping it up in the community. Zwift Racing League is a ton of community races. Raced against him many a times here. And him and Niall Beatty, both from Restart here, going immediately to the front through this section we had talked about just a few minutes ago, that you can take some speed through these little bumps, leaving Titans Grove, and the pack may back off and watch. We are getting a response from the pack. They're keeping it within 1 second. Now they're bringing it all back together here. But if there's a little bit of continuance or somebody takes some speed from the pack, and that's exactly what we're seeing here from Flores. Flores comes over the top, but doesn't seem that interested in any kind of continuance to try and create a split. And now the motivation goes out. So it was Nichols. We saw a little bit from Restart there as well. BL13 getting involved at the front. Now it all backs right on off, and we see again the 3 watts per kilogram. Sjolander, though, he wants a break to happen. He continues to press these little paces here early on. Is this a telltale, a little bit of a playing of his cards here early to say he does not want to be going together into the gray, but instead wants to be off the front with now Flores now. Here's the look at him as he calms things right on down. As you can see, this is a situation where you can see the rider is kind of like, okay, need to back off. That's your 3 watt per kilogram pedal stroke. I'm very familiar with that when you're like, okay, stand up and kind of jostle around a little bit. It didn't really work. There's not a lot of like intensity focus there as he goes back into the pack.
There's going to be a massive explosion, setting up a mushroom cloud that you will see all over Watopia when they hit the bottom of the grade, Nathan. As Sjolander still on the front, But I have to look back at this group and realize that I think most of these riders have a start line in their mind that's the bottom of the grade. And I mean, what do you expect to see at that point? You know, you're really talking about with 46 total K of racing. To me, this kicks off around 25K in, to tell you the truth. I think that's when they start racing to the bottom of that climb.
He got what he wanted, Dave. They're like, fine, you want to
What are
keep
you
on
gonna
doing
do with
that?
it?
Go right
Becomes
ahead.
the question. What are you going to do with this? I mean,
Yeah, it's a good
in all
question,
honesty.
Dave. I
So
mean,
you've
looking
got
at this,
gap,
it's
but-
interesting. It's definitely interesting here. You know, we're taking a look at Scholander here. He's being chased down pretty quickly here by Saris with Holden Camus. And that's another. Now, here's the deal. You get somebody like Holden who wants a gap. Scholander who also wants a gap. You start getting some of these riders who are sprinters or rulers who don't necessarily have the climb for the grade that in their legs. They want the distance so they can fade climb and end up in a sprint situation or at least be able to chase back anything that gets away from them. So that's the plan. Maybe get a few of these riders who've got that motivation to have a gap before you hit the grade involved.
The Sprinters Club, Nathan, what they're saying is, hey, why don't we have an understanding here? Like riders like you just mentioned, Holden Camus, right? Look, if you are a true sprinter, if you can make more than, let's say, 15 watts per kilo, why don't you come in this auto bus? We're going to roll clear. They're going to give us 35 seconds at the bottom of the grade. We'll see, as Nathan said, if we can sag climb this and still be in contact or even within 15 seconds, because you'd expect these kind of guys to be able to make up some time on that descent on the way to the finish line. I mean, the grade is going to, I mean, it's almost exactly what you're talking about, Nathan, when you look at the riders that are going with Holden. So Holden is asking for a Sprinters Club to be given a little bit of a break here. I don't know that they're going to get
Shut
it.
down pretty quickly. Yeah, Nicky Hug now, counterattack, 10 watts per kilogram from Hug. That's a big move. And this is through a section of course that has this odd situation where you can kind of gain a ton of speed through this without the pack getting quite as much unless they really work for it, because it's this negative 2% gradient. Taking 55, 56 kilometers per hour through here, the front of the pack backs off to zero. They're doing like 47 or something like that. I mean, almost 10 kilometers per hour faster. This could go, and with this counter here, are we going to see a pack try to bridge across for a breakaway? I think we're going to start seeing some responses to this pretty quickly.
Wow.
Hug continues into those orange numbers. Mason Roca looking to go across.
Yeah, former professional basketball player Roca going to try to go from station to station like an astronaut out here, Nathan. Let me send you to ZwiftWorldSeries.com. If you're looking for more information on these athletes or what's going on in the World Series, it is all right there in a really great format. So ZwiftWorldSeries.com. If you're wondering if Mason Roca is going to be useful, the answer is absolutely he will. So Nicky Hug putting out an invitation. This is going to be interesting as we go in camp. Former U.S. Indoor Esports World Champion Mason Roca right here is in camp. And let's see what we've got, Nathan. This will be interesting as it's getting a little spicier out here now.
Well, Nicky Hug, who is your top-ranked rider in the qualifiers from the elite races points. He did not get a series pass from the elite races, but he was the top-ranked rider in the elite race. Using a drafting power-up at this point, a rider of that level, using a drafting power-up to hang on to Mason's wheel for a moment there, tells you just how hard these riders are going. He's up into 185 beats per minute right now at this moment. Gagnon's trying to come across. Butler, Hayden Pucker's gotten involved. And the reality of Hayden Pucker being such a marked athlete out here, I believe, that's going to start getting some responses from the main pack. And now you see riders being smart about this, though. They're jumping with orange numbers. They're not just dragging this across. Now, those orange numbers can drag a few across. It will create a lineup with some sort of an echelon there to start working its way through. But eventually, the elastic may snap a little bit here. It's just barely getting back on terms. It does look like it's going to get settled down. Gagnon continues on, though, 5.7 or so. Will they be able to now snap again? We're going to probably see either a complete calming at this point right now or a counter move to try and get away.
Well, interesting that you say counter move, Nathan. Hayden Pucker comes from a world of martial arts. I believe it was judo that he was competitive in, which is truly using your opponent's strength against them, right? Or maybe that's Tai Chi, but I think in general, that's the sense of what martial arts are about. It's the exact same thing in the racing that we've got here. You have to learn how to use your competitors against themselves ultimately. And I would think, Nathan, you tell me if I'm wrong as we look at Christensen now, the Danish rider taking his turn off of the front. There's just no quarter asked for, no quarter given. But Nathan, I would think that Hayden Pucker makes the short list. If you asked every rider in this race who's their danger man today, or who would they most be marking, I would think that Hayden Pucker, although we haven't even talked about yet, is Josh Harris out of Australia, who's in this field. And I feel like that's something that we need to remedy. Josh Harris is a huge talent. One of the best in the world.
Josh Hare's very smart rider too, and there's a reason why we haven't seen him on the front yet, is because he is waiting for everything to go uphill. There's plenty of riders actually we haven't said a whole lot about so far because it's been so calm for them to just get that free ride up until this point. We've seen now finally I'm seeing the likes of James Barnes making his way toward the front. This is the first time I've seen James Barnes poke his head to the front of this race. 5.1. I think that's mainly to set up next at this point to bring this all back together so it doesn't get too out of control. A James Barnes attack would be in the orange numbers. This is a 4.6 or so steady at the front.
No, but I mean, James Barnes is the perfect example, Nathan, of these are not the droids that you're looking for, right? Because if you let him go, you might be making the biggest mistake of the race thinking that he's trying to set up his teammates, or are you? And that is the head games that get played out here. It really is a Machiavellian chess match when you look at esports or bike racing in general. And today, Nathan, the one thing that I would say, and I absolutely love watching this, is how closely you have to guard your efforts. And absolutely out here, you made the call talking about the chess game, and we're moving from the pawns on the board into the rooks and the bishops. Maybe not quite the kings and the queens, those pieces, but we're getting to the point where the more serious players seem to be putting their nose in the wind. Nicky has been really aggressive out here, no doubt about it. And I think, going back to what you're saying, I think he's doing this to maybe help set up his teammates today.
It's either the setup for the teammates, but sometimes, like being the top-ranked rider right now with the Zwift World Series points without a series pass, he's not playing the safe game, which is interesting to me. He's saying, I belong at a certain level. Perhaps he's saying this. You rock up to a race and you're like, yeah, and I'm just that good, and I'm going to make this race as hard as I possibly can because in the end, I trust that I'm going to hit that qualifier as long as I just race my race the way I want to. And I think he just wants to create this separation. I think he just wants to get away and say, forget it, it's over.
Bingo, Nathan. I think that it's both, to tell you the truth, where he knows that if he races incredibly aggressively, even though he might not win this race outright, it benefits all of his teammates here as well. He's so confident that he makes the top 19. And again, the number will be different for the women's race, but it is 19 spots that are available for the men. It's actually 23 for the women, but 19 for the men. We don't need to get into all the details of how that works, but it comes down to, honestly, if you qualify out of this race into next week's main event in the World Series, racing on the same course, but joining all of the riders that have the series pass. There's 8 teams with 3 riders each. You join them. But if you do get a top 10 in 2 weeks, then you get a series pass. And that's why Nathan was mentioning Nicky Hug. He was one of the top riders who qualified, went and raced, got a lot of points, but didn't get into that top 10. But he's always going to be right there.
Taking a look at Nicky Hug with Holden Camus going across. Now, Holden is not going to work at all, I don't believe, because, first of all, perhaps he could, but it's kind of a waste of energy for him necessarily at the front of this race. I think he's more concerned of just making that fade climb. Mason Roca now coming across, it looks like he's going to want to get involved to do some work. I think Roca and Hug are going to work together, whereas Holden is along for the ride for the sprint at the end, making sure he's getting the most advantages he possibly can. And he knows that Nicky Hug is a freight train. He's happy that Roka's come across because now at least two riders are going to be doing some work, while Holden is just going to sit in and do what Holden does. Now look at Roka here putting the work in at the front. Well, Holden sits in. Well, is he going to go to the front for a moment? Interesting enough, maybe he's going to make me eat my words, but I had a feeling he wasn't going to do much. Maybe now that he sees that they have 10 seconds, 9 seconds or so, now he's got the confidence that it's worth the effort. He gets to the front at about 5 watts per kilogram.
Yeah, I think you can flip the switch for Holden because he is going to try to put as much of a buffer as he can. And they're sitting up a little bit back in the peloton right now, Nathan. So this actually is going to go the way that Holden wants it to. Holden, Nathan, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think he would be the worst guy to bring to the line if you were looking to win this race outright, as far as he's beyond extra when it comes to sprinting. But this isn't really about that today. Sure, we talked about it 2 weeks ago or a month ago that racers are going to race. And if you put a finish line out there, they're going to go for that win. But it really is about making the top 19 spots. But it's not like we're racing World Series again tomorrow. You've got 2 weeks to recover. So I think there's a benefit in a lot of ways for the riders to get out here at full gas race pace and race in this qualifier. To have done this once, although things really do change with the prize money and the preems, there's a lot of dynamics in the World Series proper event. But here in the qualifier, you learn a lot about how to race this course. And if you did have Holden Como in our final of the in 2 weeks, he'd be the last guy you want in that group with you if you're going to the line for a sprint. That doesn't look like it'll be the case today.
This is an interesting situation because Nicky Hug is going to have to do everything he can, as well as Mason, to get rid of Holden before the line. The reality of the kind of rider that Hug is, I think he's got some confidence with these two. I'm surprised to see Holden really head to the front. I think he's rolling through a little bit here with some speed and then trying to encourage Nicky to keep on going. Now, this is kind of quite the dilemma, but I wouldn't be too worried about it personally as Hug. Go ahead.
Well, the question is, Nathan, are these three racing for qualifying spots to move into the race for World Series in 2 weeks, or are they racing to win this race?
Yeah, 100%. I think that they're racing for the qualifying spots. I think everybody here is showing up for the qualifying spots, and the best chance that both Roka and Holden will get at this moment is to go with Nicky and get as much distance as they possibly can because of the level of riders that is in the pack behind them now at this point. There's going to be a lot of time made up on that grade.
And for the same reason, then, shouldn't Holden pull?
That's an interesting one. I mean, it really is, because how much energy does he want to expend in hopes at this moment
here's the thought.
To hang
He's
on
either
to
going to make
Nicky Hug's wheel?
Well, the concept here is, Nathan, that for him, it's making the top 19. Are his chances better riding in this group of three and working with them versus hoping that he's in a group that sprints after they get caught by all of the James Barnes, Jasper Paradanes, Ed Labricks, Josh Harris's and company? He probably won't be able to hang with that group or rejoin that group. So I think that he's trying to front load this race here today. Just put as much out in front of it and hope that the race doesn't come to him until the finish. That's my thought anyways. He's not looking to win a sprint outright today. He's looking to make that top 19, would be my thought.
Behind, we've got a couple of moves being made. The Italian Benedetti up into 6.9 watts per kilogram. Arnie Jacobs also looking to come across, one of the top riders as well that did qualify but did not get a series pass. Did qualify in the last qualifier, but did not get a series pass in the elite races. So Arnie Jacobs, Rui Costa's also making a move. Josh Harris also looking to make that little bit of a split, perhaps, with Andrew Buffington all behind there. Still holding on, though, to 18 seconds. Came down by 3 seconds after those little bit of moves that are being made behind. They are starting to ramp things up in the main group, but Now down to 17 seconds, and it calms right back on down as they head toward the grade. Roca now to the front at 4.4 watts per kilogram. Hug sitting on, and these guys still working well together. I'm actually a little bit surprised to see how well that's doing, but it's a good point, Dave. They now, it seems like, have come up to a truce at this point in order to say, look, we need some serious passes. Perhaps there are a couple of DMs set for a moment to say, hey, if we want this to work out, we need to work together to get as much distance as we can between ourselves and that pack.
You know, there's always that breaking point in these races, too. We've seen it before where at some point the guys in the chase realize, hey, this isn't entirely my problem right now. If these three guys stay away, and that's what's happening right now when you look at the peloton, who's going to chase this back and burn matches now and put yourself a little bit on the back foot when you hit the grade then, where you're going to be vulnerable to being attacked and fall out of that top 16 in this group, right? So it really is, which side of the coin do you want to play? And I think there's a lot of guys back here that are saying, look, this isn't really my problem. There's still 16 spots left. I'm definitely one of the 10 best climbers here. Why would I want to chase them back? Sometimes that ship sails, and it's gone out to 20 seconds now. So I'm feeling like I might be onto it, Nathan.
20 seconds here. Is it going to be enough? It's going to be interesting. The pack very calm at this point because, like you said earlier, Dave, it's going to go bananas in just a moment. Everything is going to blow up as soon as they take that right-hand turn onto the grade. Everybody looking forward to that now at this point. And because they are, this distance between themselves and this break, it's going to go out just a little bit now at this point. Nicky Hug again, though, I think getting maybe a little bit frustrated because he continues to punch these little 5 to 6 watts per kilogram on the front because the roll through from Roca and Kamo at this point hasn't been nearly what Hug has been putting out. So Nicky Hug fully committed, I think, for a win out here today as he does take the right onto the grade. Now we're going to get a good sense of what kind of pace is going to be set to the top. And Holden and Roca letting that wheel go a little bit here. I feel like they haven't been attentive enough to get as much as they need to because now they're going to be chasing Hug into the bottom. That's exactly the opposite of what they needed. And I think at this point it's going to be Roca and Kamo together on this climb while Hug walks away.
Yeah, I think Nicky said enough of that. If you guys aren't going to take harder pulls, then I'm just going to punch your ticket and let you work on your own. And this is going to turn into an absolute Donnybrook out here, Nathan. That gap is going up, up, up. 26 seconds right now. There is going to be a nuclear level explosion in this group. But I think, Nathan, that they right now have said, all right, that ship is sailed. If we see those three later, so be it. There's still no way to say that those three are gone. Not even close. But for this moment, these guys are looking at each other. We are locked and loaded. Big time bike racing is back here on Watopia. Nathan, we have never raced up the grade before, and at this level, get ready for what's going to be, absolute fireworks out here. So to set the table for you as we come through the middle part of the race, but up to the sector that is absolutely the main feature out here, it's Holden Kamo and Mason Roca, the two Americans who've just been dropped by Nicky Hug, and Kamo has let go. So let's see if that's going to be enough advantage for him to do what Nathan was talking about, which is sag climbing, but it is on like Donkey Kong, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
It's going to be Thomas Perrin setting the pace from the main group. Nicky Hug here now, though, with the gap. He's still holding on to a solid 20 seconds at this point. Holden letting the wheel go, about to be caught, actually, by the main group. Not even halfway through this main start of the grade to tell you how incredibly fast they are traveling. But Hug here leading things out. Kamo now caught, but will he be able to now hang on to Perrin's wheel? I doubt it, as Perrin looks to be going bottom to top. He kicked at 9 watts per kilogram at the bottom of this climb and just continues on at 7 at this point, starting to distance himself. Perfect setup from Hug with Next Esports to get out ahead of this and maybe get Perrin to come across to have a 2-up from Next Esports.
Oh, here comes the cavalry. Ed Labrick on his way. Hayden Pucker, Stefan Van Elst. We're going to go in cam with Thomas Perrin. He's been one of the most consistent performers in esports over the last 2 years. A huge part, I would say a cornerstone of the next presented by Insured program. So Thomas Perrin is going to be, I mean, Nathan, it was fantastic to watch when you talk about sag climbing, how quickly all of that work just evaporated out there for Holden Camo. So it shows you now as we're on to the grade here. Again, we've never seen this featured in racing at this level. Nicky's still holding on, but watch how quickly he's given up that 24 seconds. That was the high water mark, and Thomas Perrin is about to make contact here. So Thomas Perrin is going to be your danger man without any doubt. Severa Nicolo, the Italian, is there. Stefan Van Elst. Joe Choidek, after a great ride a month ago, he's back on the gas out here. But Nathan, everybody's got to be focusing on Farm Watts, Hayden Pucker. Let's see what he can do here on the grade. You know, we're talking about Zwift Academy. He's in the mix with Zwift Academy right now. Riders like Jasper Paradanes have already been a part and had success at Zwift Academy, but Thomas Perrin has made contact. So let's see what happens now with Nicky. Can he hold this wheel, Nathan?
Yeah, it's going to be a big question. It's actually perfect timing when the catch was made. Like, this is an awesome setup for Hug if he can hold the wheel as it levels out here for a moment. We're going to go to 0% gradient as they leave the first section for just a moment. Hug needs to get on the wheel of Thomas Perrin as Perrin pulled at a 7 watts per kilogram to the top here. But I think Hug is going backwards at this point. Perrin, is he going to sit up? I don't think so. He's just got to continue on. Hug is going to trust the main group now as Thomas Perrin says, forget it. I've got to go to the top. This is my wheelhouse at this point, and I got to make it spin as they're going to hit the switchbacks for the second half of the grade here. Nicolo from Italy here is the main man on the front end. Hayden Pucker sitting second wheel, trusting that this is going to come back.
Yeah, we're going to be resetting and reshuffling the deck here over and over. Nicky Hug didn't burn a match, Nathan. He burnt a log out there. As I'm going to be very interested to see if he does hold on and get one of those qualifying spots. Again, top 19 riders. It is absolute Donnybrook time out here right now. So Nathan, we predicted that the grade was going to be the ultimate throwdown. There's no doubt that it lived up to that. You can see just up the road there is Thomas Perrin. There's Jasper Paradanes. So look at this. 3 Belgians lining it up right now. Ruben Dant is here. Haven't even mentioned David Talbot yet. Josh Harris. Nathan, heavy hitters only need apply at the front now. There's no way to fake it in this group. That looks like right around 19 riders to me on screen.
Yeah, this is going to be the main selection. It looks like it's going to be interesting to see how many do make it up on over the top, because we may have a chase group actually battling for the final spots. But I think we're just outside of 19 still at this point. Paradanes is the main man looking to go across. You can see him just up the road there with Thomas Perrin right around the corner. There it is, looking to make contact. We could have a Jasper Paradanes, Thomas Perrin 2 up at this moment, but Stefan Van Elst still on the chase. It's going to be Joe Chudik, then Hayden Pucker, Ruben Dant, Josh Harris, all still involved up toward the front, but it's going out to about 5 or 6 seconds now, as Perrin's only got 2, though, on Paradanes as they make their way to the final couple of switchbacks. But it gets into the difficult parts of the grade, doesn't it here, Dave? At 10% now, things really slow down, and the real gaps can start opening up.
This is your OSS situation, Nathan. Only the strong survive. There's 2 different storylines to be tracking right now. One would be the exceptional ride from Thomas Perrin, but for me, it's going to be the regulators who have mounted up back in the peloton. Nathan, by my rough estimate, if you're in that group, you're sitting right on the bubble of the 19 spots that will qualify for the race in 2 weeks. But this is the man that's been animating and dictating here on the grade so far. So Thomas Perrin looks comfortable being uncomfortable to me, Nathan. I'm not too worried about him, that's for sure. What a beautiful shot this is of our solo leader. But he's the man that's done the damage. But right now, imagine how grippy it is, Nathan, at the back of what I'm going to call Chase 1. Jasper is coming, so he's separating himself from the Chase group here. And, you know, to tell you the truth, Nathan, downhills are the new uphill right? I mean, a lot of attacking on downhills are where races are won and lost these days. So these two might be rejoined later just because you're leading up and over the top here. And the climbing doesn't end at the top of the grade, actually, which seems cruel to me. But they've still got more climbing ahead of them here.
They'll get a little bit of reprieve. Whether or not Paradines can get on terms with Perrin here at this point, Van Elst as well, is going to be a big question. Look at the effort. This is, oh my God. He is doing everything he can to try and grab that wheel, because it will definitely matter as it flattens out for a moment. Van Elst here almost across to him now at this point. Perrin, though, continuing on, smashing the pedals here. Behind, there is a chase group of what looks to be about 6 or 7, maybe 7 riders, with Andrew Buffington just trying to hang on to that group, as it's going to be Josh Harris, Ruben Daunt, Ed Laverick, Hayden Pucker, David Talbot, Joe Power, Jay Honda, and Andrew Buffington just scraping the bottom of the barrel to hang on in this main chase group, with 3 up the road that may not actually hold on to this gap on the downhills. They're going to have to work really well together if they can work together. Now, the 2 Belgians are getting together at this point, though. Paradines and Van Elst now just 4 seconds behind Perrin, and that's going to be a big boost to the 2 of them to try and catch Perrin on the downhills. If they can have 3, that's a really good tight cord there at that point to try and get to the finish line without being caught by that chase group.
Wow, I mean, it looks like Milan San Remo, they're racing in a blizzard out here right now. So Nathan, Junsei Honda, the Japanese rider, there's your rider coming out of the woodwork. He did have a great result a month ago, and this is really confirmation for Honda. We're going to be hearing more from this Japanese rider, and I love to see it. This is a who's who, no doubt about it when you look on your screen. Nathan, some of the riders here on the front, like our solo leader, Thomas Perrin, as you mentioned, the Belgians about to make contact here. That's Paradines and Van Elst. It'll be interesting to see because they're safe at this point. They don't need to worry about being caught by the group behind them because they're still going to be well inside of the position that they need to qualify. So I'm excited to see what happens from here on in. How hard does this chase group work to bring these guys back? Are they gone for good? We've got a lot to race for out here today. These 19 spots, it's hypercritical that we watch back. It looks like it's going to be Group 3, I believe, on course, Nathan, where that final rider earns their spot. These highly coveted spots here as we go back and pick up our race leader. I mean, I'm not going to say that he looks like he's enjoying this right now, but he's a man who looks like he's well suited to the task at hand here as we look at Thomas Perrin in camp.
Thomas Perrin just did a solid 6 to 7 watts per kilogram all the way to the top of the grade, and then continues on now at this point at a 5.5 or so. Just says, forget it, I'm off the front, I'm going to work for what I need to get this win, while Paradines and Van Elst here back off to about a 4.8 or 5.0. I think at this point, this is a race for the win between Perrin and those 2 chasers, because behind the main group at this point, as you take a look at them here, they've all calmed right on down. Ruben Daunt now, Josh Harris start to make their way to the front to try and keep the pace high because they're in it for the win perhaps at this point. Do you calm down and say, look, we've qualified, or is it all about the pride now at this point and making sure as well that you're not caught from behind here, because there is a group that's going to form behind with a whole lot of motivation to stay involved in this race?
What is the word, Nathan? Hubris? Was it Icarus that flew too close to the sun and the wings melted, right? And I think that's sort of where we're at, where how badly do you need to win a bike race for your own inner confidence? And I'd say pretty badly for most racers, to tell you the truth. This is why they do this, is to win bike races. I truly think that's such a great question, Nathan, because I think that these riders that we're looking at on screen now, the Belgians and the Englishmen, that they know that they won't fall outside of the top 19. They are purebred bike racers, true blue, as they say in Australia. Great to be celebrating Swift's 10th birthday, by the way, with these graphics on screen. Nathan, what an amazing way to celebrate racing out here today in the Zwift World Series. But I'm going to go back and answer your question full on. These guys are bike racers. They're racing for the win. They've got that top 19 spot in the bag.
Perrin
They can shoot for the
continuing on,
moon,
showing
and they'll
us
end up
exactly
amongst the stars, right?
100% is Perrin here on the front, looking to try and solidify this win. He's got 10 seconds now at this point. It looks to me like he has broken the chase from the Belgians, Paradines and Van Elst, though. Ed Laverick now on the front of the main chase group behind them, though, as he puts out a solid 4 watts per kilogram. Now, a little bit of tactical conversation here as we get into these negative 6%. Anytime that you get into negative 3% or more, you're gonna look to try and hit that 57 kilometers per hour and then ramp up that speed over and over again. But you can go into 0 watts and hold 57 or more once you're over that 3%. And I have a feeling that a whole lot of them are going to keep on working for that 57 and then resting on that downhill as much as they possibly can. Perrin, though, he says, seems to be saying forget that and just keeps on pushing this 7 watts per kilogram over and over again. I do think that the riders are starting to communicate between each other a little bit, saying that, look, we're just working for the qualifications. Start working together and make sure that they are not caught by anybody behind. As we take a look at Perrin again, up into 7 watts per kilogram, kicking to the top of this Watopia climb.
Nathan, that's the perfect example of the risk reward we talked about at the start of the broadcast. Because if you're in what I'm going to call Chase 2, the Daunt, Harris, Laverick, Power, Honda, Talbot, Pucker group, you have every reason in the world to work together, stay reasonable, keep it cool, keep it chill, as you, even if you get caught by the next group, you're still okay, but there's no reason to go overboard and worry about making this catch. I think Thomas Perrin really cracked the code. His biggest danger is going to be what do the 2 Belgians do, Van Elst and Paradines, because I don't think that the Laverick group makes contact with them either out here. I do think that Thomas Perrin's going to hold on for the outright win here today, which would be a nice feather in your cap, and certainly someone who's absolutely going to be a rider to watch in 2 weeks.
I'm seeing a little bit of motivation from Van Elst, I think. He's dropping Paradines behind. I saw a big kick from him for a moment. I'm not sure he wants to drop his fellow countryman necessarily as he backs off the 6.5 watts per kilogram. Now you do see Perrin's back up and out of the saddle as he makes his way over the top of the KOM banner there in just a moment. It's going to head down hills, but Van Elst crosses. I believe Van Elst is looking to cross this gap. Paradines is back on terms. You can just see it off in the distance there. There they are, chasing just off in the distance within 5 seconds or so, continually keeping that gap within striking distance as Perrin works now again up into 5 watts per kilogram. But Paradines and Van Elst doing a really good job of keeping this within the distance for the win here. There is a lot of pride at stake, it seems like, between these 3 and who's going to take this down. I thought Paradines was fading for just a moment and perhaps had done too much early on, and Van Elst was going to be the better of the 2. But at this moment, still evenly matched as we look at chase group number 2.
Jasper is like a wattage Ferrari, Nathan. He just saw that he had a rear view mirror and reached out and tore it off and threw it on the ground. He's not looking back. He's looking forward. No doubt about it, as he's going to try to make that. I mean, he's closing the gap now on Thomas. So we got ourselves a legit bike race at the front. These guys aren't just worried about qualifying. They're looking to stake their claim here. I mean, this is historic. Racing on the grade, obviously we will be back, but what a phenomenal feature here for race number 2 of the Zwift World Series. So our qualifier for the men well underway. We've still got the women's race to look forward to. So let's take a look at our chasers. I mean, they're still not out of the question, Nathan. That gap is coming down, looking at 20 seconds, and Harris taking a monster pole right now. They might make the catch.
Yeah, it's a big question mark here for sure, because behind, as we take a look at these chasers here, I believe this is going to be Joe Lewis's group here now, trying to make some moves toward the front of that group. And looking at Andrew Buffington, just barely making this as well. But there's this bubble here that I'm looking at, and it's going to be, I believe, that chase group number 5. Looking through here, right around there with Tatu Kostanen. It's going to be Zach Neer, Michael Machado, received Aiden Patterson, and a few others that, I have a feeling that's going to be that bubble group. They're about 116 back at this point, and it's actually in that group. led currently by Andy Nichols, all the way down. That's going to be looking at it somewhere around 15th, all the way through 27th place. We're looking at 12 riders that are all together that are going to be battling it out for that bubble to try and get through.
And as you said, it sounds like 12 fighting for 4 chairs at the table. That's a tough ratio to be in a group. So I would expect riders, I mean, they're in their whole own bike race right now. What's happening up the road for them, Nathan, really has zero impact on how they need to be racing in that group.
Yeah, I mean, it's 19 spots, right, Dave? So, and with all these riders together, they're all going to be looking at each other like, how do we get rid of a few of these and just make it the top 19? Marcus Duval right on that bubble right now, but he's got a whole lot of people with him.
You know, it's interesting. I see Rogério Costa, the Brazilian rider who was so active in the beginning of this race. I'm going to keep an eye on him to see if he pays a price for those huge efforts that he made early. And another rider that certainly attacks out of that group, Nathan, wouldn't you think it would be, well, Joe Choidik or Zach Nair?
Well, yeah, those are riders that can just ride away. There's also the question mark
the front
behind
group
there as you see that that Joe Lewis with Arnie Jacobs and others, they're only 15 to 20 seconds up from that group as well. So there's all the motivation in the world for them to work together to hold off that chase group, because if they get joined by that group that's around that 16th or so all the way through 27th, the whole conversation changes. You're no longer secure. Right. You're completely, now you could be out of the question completely as far as getting through. So Paradines, Perrin, Van Elst, it looks like this is going to be the main situation at the front. It does look like, is that going to be right? Perrin has been caught and Van Elst is right along with them?
That's correct. So, Nathan, this is fantastic. So we've got really 3 different bike races going on. This is what's going on at the Tête de la Corsa, the front end. Jasper Paradines, as I said, he's that wattage Ferrari. Didn't need a rear view mirror, did he? Everything out front now is clear sailing if he can hold on for this 11K of racing that remains for Jasper. So former Zwift Academy standout Paradines, the Belgian, on the front. Stefan Van Elst now has also made contact with Thomas Perrin. So that updates you on what's going on in the front. The Josh Harris group has got this down to about 11 seconds. Well, let's make it 15 seconds up to Jasper now. So that's a rough estimate, but probably pretty close at this point. So this is far from a done deal with a little over 10K of racing remaining. But really, Nathan, the real drama, the gut check is happening back in these qualifying spots. 19 riders will transfer from the quali here today into the Zwift World Series main event in 2 weeks, racing on this exact course. But boy, there's a lot of riders in. Good if you're sitting back in group here.
Harris converse, you can see him type, hey, look, I'm coming too. I'm going to work with you guys. And they're going to close this down to the front of the bike race. Well, Jasper Paradines is off the front on the full gas attack. He's got 6 seconds or so on the rest of this group, but it's going to be Pucker, Van Elst, Dant, Perrin, all working together trying to hold off a chase group that's David Talbot, Ed Laverick, Honda's there as well, Joe Power, Joe Lewis now trying to make contact with that group. Dave, this is far from over. There's plenty of racing left, and now everybody's on the chase.
I mean, what an amazing event. It is absolute pandemonium on Watopia right now. Hayden Pucker could win this race outright. The kid is in fuego this year. So Ruben Dant is there. I mean, Nathan, if you want to talk about the top nation, Belgium in full effect. Jasper Paradines, though, is going to really be in danger of being joined. I mean, I honestly thought Thomas Perrin was gone. This race just goes back and forth out there. So here we go, entering the finale, the realm of the finale. Nathan, I did want to quickly point out, a lot of times when we finish back in Ocean City, you get used to that the start-finish arch there right on Ocean Boulevard. We do go a little bit past that for our finish line here. just to give you a heads up, Jasper Paradines now has got to be scraping the bottom of the barrel. As look at the quality of Chase 1 now. Let's hit these 5 riders with Thomas Parent, Stefan Van Elst, Ruben Dant, Hayden Pucker, and Josh Harris.
Josh Harris to the front, 6.4 watts per kilogram. Perrin right on the wheel there. It looks like Hayden Pucker willing to do some work as well. Van Elst, after such a huge effort, perhaps going to be looking to sit in a little bit. Ruben Dant falling off the back for a moment. I think a little bit of inattentiveness. The speeds are high here, up into 46 kilometers per hour or so. 7 seconds up the road, I believe it is, with Paradines now at this point. Harris, though, now backing off. You can see they're in the TTT mode. That's what I was talking about. He was putting in a solid effort a moment ago. Now gets up and out of the saddle and then just backs off into 3 to 4 watts per kilogram and is going to now sit in for a moment as Pucker now takes a massive pull up into 480 watts or so, brings it back to 5 seconds. I think the writing's on the wall for Paradines, and we're going to have a group in just a moment of 6 riders. I think they're going to be bringing it to the line, but behind still, Dave, David Talbot's putting out 6.5 watts per kilogram. The American's still on the chase, or maybe thinking about the group behind, because that's outside of qualification if they're caught.
Yeah, you know what? That is the Mason-Dixon line for me, Nathan, when you talk about these guys, Josh Harris, Hayden Puckers, Thomas Parent, Stefan Van Elst, and Ruben Dant. They're racing for the win, no doubt about it. I might be a little more conservative if I'm back in that group that you were just talking about with David Talbot. Ed Laverick is there, Honda, who we mentioned, Chell Power. So I think those guys might want to work together more in line of trying to hold off the Joel Lewis group that's coming for them like a runaway freight train out there. It's only about 15 seconds. So a little bit conservative, but I'm going to say for those guys, they should race just to hold off that next group rather than worry about the gold standard, which is right now Jasper Paradines, but he's given back another second here over the last half K. But Nathan, how many times have we seen it that the catch isn't made until the actual catch is made? But I'm certainly thinking that Josh Harris has got enough in the tank along with these other superstars of esports racing that are sitting up in this group. Although Paradines could get caught and still win the race in a sprint.
Massive kick here I'm seeing from Josh Harris up and over the top of that bump, and that's to bring the speed up as high as they possibly can in order to try and make this catch on Paradines. But Paradines, he's just, man, this guy is just nonstop, will not throw in the towel here at this point. 4.6 watts per kilogram now. I think he's starting to think perhaps the writing's on the wall a little bit as he starts to see it come down within that 3. And Ruben Dant to the front, 7 watts per kilogram for a moment there. That's going to bring the speeds up plenty high, and I think it's nothing but a catch now at this point. They're going to go off into the dirt here, left-hand turn, and down into the lower slopes before the volcano. Flat roads for just a moment. Paradines bumps it up again. Ruben Dant's actually going across solo. Look at this look on Ruben's face. He's actually looking to get involved with Paradines and say goodbye to everybody else. He wants a 2-up here at this point with his countryman. It looks like Thomas Parent lost the wheel there for a moment as Dant crosses over to Paradines. Now Paradines and Dant have a 3-second gap over that chase group.
Yo, he's going right by him, though, Nathan. He's not going to give him a chance. You've got to slam that door shut. If you let him get in your slipstream, that's a huge mistake. And Ruben Dant is all in. He's got the accelerator down on the floorboard, and this is a massive move. And it looks like Paradines is going to be able to recover and come back onto that wheel. Oh, Nathan, they're just throwing body blows. I cannot believe that Jasper's been able to respond and come back up and over the top. These two in an ultimate throwdown. Nathan, if you have to look back at that next group, I mean, is Hayden Pucker on paper the best sprinter if they make the catch? They're not going to run out of real estate. I do believe that these 4 will make contact. Oh, it's going to be touch and go all the way to the finish line. But is this Hayden Pucker's race to lose now?
Yeah, Pucker was actually messaging me before the race out here today, said, I got a sprint now. So maybe he's looking for a sprint situation. In the past, the guy could not get the kick necessarily. It was nothing but that freight train, but he just made that freight train happen for that final pole, brings it all. This is the first time since Nicky Hug made that move This is the first time we've had it kind of all come back together and calm down at the front of the race. It was Perrin then over the top. Then after that, it was Van Elst alongside of Paradines. Paradines made a move on the downhill. Then Ruben Donk goes across. Hayden Pucker closes it all back together. And now we've got a situation where Josh Harris is looking to make a move.
The drama in the final few Ks, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's hard to believe, Nathan, that this event was about 19 qualifying spots, because this turns into one of the best races that we've seen in a long time in esports. And here you go. These are the gladiators of Watts. The 6 riders together. One of these men is going to take the win. What's classic here, Nathan, is the win and 19th place carry the exact same amount of weight when you look at what we're here for, which is qualifying for racing in 2 weeks. But there's going to be a tremendous amount of pride. We've talked about the fact that a quality victory is going to be based on the quality of the competition. This is a world-class group that we've got going to the line here. Every one of these guys has or will represent their nation at the highest level in this sport.
I just have to highlight something here real quickly. Behind all of this, at that 19th place right now, is Zach Neer. And from the Zach Neer group, okay, about, I think, chase group 5 or 6, right around there, Andy Nichols just made a move from that group to go alone solo. A little ways behind what we're looking at here. Right here with the Zach Neer, behind, just a little ways behind there, you can actually see off on the right-hand side, in the lower right here, that's the chase here at this moment. For the last couple of spots, the Zach Neer group is the one that is on the bubble for 19th. And in that group, I'm seeing Alexander Gagnon, I'm seeing Machado, I'm seeing Chudik, I'm seeing Nicolo, Buffington. There's this group that's got about 9 riders or so that are going to have to battle it out for that last spot. This is it for them, whether or not they make that qualifier. And we're back in Koistinen, Buffington. I mean, this is that dream for these riders to get into that elite race.
Yeah, this is amazing when you look at the drama that's happening left, right, and center out here on Watopia. The grade really lived up to it. So this is how we've sorted things out. This is our front group that we're back in with now. 3K of racing. This is going to be done and dusted in just a few minutes here. And I think everybody's going to go a little bit conservative in this group now for a moment, Nathan, because the first rider to attack doesn't win this race.
Yeah, that's a great point, exactly. I mean, well, Dave, with how incredibly difficult this has been, you could get a situation where the riders start watching each other a little bit. You could get, well, I'm not going to close that down, I'm not going to close that down. Or who has sat enough and reserved enough to make a move that no one can respond to? That's the other big question here. Is there anybody here? I mean, we just saw Don essentially looks like burn every match he has. Pucker threw down a lot to try and close things down, but I do feel like Hayden Pucker never went into an all-in move just yet since the beginning of this race. Does he have a match to burn full all-in with 1K to go?
Well, this is all about March and the Zwift games, but right now, Josh Harris, for me, Nathan, probably comes in as the biggest danger man along with Hayden Pucker in this group. The Belgians are certainly going to look to prove me wrong, that's for sure. How many times have we seen Ruben Donk pull a rabbit out of a hat? Stefan Van Elst, these are the riders up in this front group. Thomas Perrin did so much work alone in the front of this race. If he can pull this one off, and he is probably, for me, the biggest wild card in this group. All right, they still haven't kicked it off. Down to 2K to go. Nathan, I'm on the edge of my seat. I can't wait to see who wins this one. I can't wait to see who gets 19th place out of the heartbreak group that's going to be that Zach Neer group that you're talking about, because, boy, has there ever been a bigger difference between 19th and 20th?
I'm not sure what's going on with Josh Harris out here today. Or just right now. He just put down a solid 6.5 watts per kilogram for the entirety of like half a K there for a moment. So I wonder if he was setting himself up to say, look, I'll do the work now and then sit in for the sprint that's going to come up in about 1.6.
Well, I think also there's some riders that don't like to see such a dramatic delta in the sprint. They don't like to start from going so slow to so hard. They want to keep it a little bit faster. And I think Jasper was in the same mindset there as Josh Harris. Here we go. Now, remembering how many times have we sprinted for this arch? This is not the finish right here. They're still over 1K. I think you're still going to see
Yeah, it's gonna
that
be an
finish
interesting
arch
finish.
here, but that's not your
We'll
finish
see it.
line.
We will
just an
see.
FYI.
Yeah, we will see the arch here in just a moment. But what's really interesting is the turns that we're going to take. It's going to be an uphill gradient for about 2% as we'll take that right-hand turn, and then a immediate left-hand turn onto Ocean Boulevard. And then very quickly, they're going to see the finish line, 873 meters. And because of these little turns, you might be able to get out ahead of it and sprint uphill. And I think a rider like Harris might have a good advantage here, being a light rider that has a lot of kick here. Watch out for Harris on this 2% uphill.
Again, none of these guys would call themselves pure sprinters or even put sprinter into their resume. But what we're looking at is this selection that happened on the grade. What an impactful moment that was. And these are the best that are left. We talked about having that drafting power-up. That really wasn't the storyline of the day today. It was about making your way into this group. Now, they've all qualified, so they can check that box. Nathan, now you're playing with the house's money. It looks like we're going to line things up, and here we go. Finish comes up quickly. Jasper Paradines, Ruben Dont, the Belgian Express is leaving the station. Is he going to come up and over the top? Thomas Perrin making a run at it.
Yeah, and I think Paradines got the jump. Here comes Perrin. There's the finish line, and it was all about the early kick to the line. Perrin, I believe, just able to take that down, followed up by Paradines. Now the sprint behind here. These are for the other placings. It looks to be to me, David Talbot getting the better of Zhao Power. Hunze Honda and Ed Laverick fighting it out for the top 10. Talbot not going to be able to get the better of Zhao Power as Power comes up and over the top of him.
Looks like Jacobs is in. Lewis should make it. Working our way through these 19 spots. 12 invitations have been mailed out, leaving 7 left, and that's the group. This is the group with 19th place in it, Nathan. Wow.
There was a massive catch made, too. This is a huge catch that was made, actually.
Yep.
Here with Andrew Buffington, Joe Chudik, and others here at this point. They were super secure, but as we had said earlier, it was going to be all about the motivation, and here it is. This is for this 19th spot, and it's going to be Machado at the front. Zach Neer's there as well. Neer leading things out, going to secure it, it looks like, with that lead out. It's going to be about what's happening behind, though, for that 19th place. Is it going to be just on the edge with Nichols, followed up by... Oh, it looks like it's just off for Gagnon. Alexander Gagnon unable to take it down. Buffington, the heartache with Machado as well.
Provisional results, but Nathan, that was what it's all about. You see exactly how much this means to our riders to make it into that top 19. It was inevitable that we were going to have a sprint like this. We really had 3 thrilling sprints in the finale out here after 46K of racing. I'll throw it back to you, Nathan. What a men's race this was.
Bertelsen leading it out for Rogerio Costa and Aiden Patterson there, fighting it for these minor placings just outside of the top 23. It's going to be Bert Kahan, I think, that was able to secure just across the line there in 24th place, 202 back from the leaders. Dave, that was this Zwift World Series. I got to say, race number 1 was, as you would say at Donnybrook, this one just took it to another level. I mean, just from the get-go, this has been absolutely crazy racing. I'm not sure I've ever seen so much motivation that has come into the virtual world and onto that virtual tarmac and just thrown down over and over and over again. I love it how much risk reward we're seeing out here right now.
Nathan, I'm right with you. You know, you've been there since the start of this, and I really feel like we are now cooking with gas when it comes to esports racing on Zwift. I mean, that race had everything that you're looking for, and what's even better is that was the qualifier. That was not the main event. That's how much it means to these athletes. So same thing coming up for the women, but for these guys now, next week, there's going to be a lot more in 2 weeks, there's going to be a lot more at stake for them with massive amounts of prize money. There's preems, and some of these riders will hopefully, because I'm cheering for all of our qualifiers. We talked about this democratic pathway, and that's something, Nathan, that I've heard you advocate for since I met you. To tell you the truth, was how do we figure out a way to make this fair and equitable? And I really think the example here shows that if you give the athletes the opportunity and a level playing field, you get amazing racing. And it's worth remembering that all of these racers are verified. The dual verification is a big part of what makes this so much fun to watch.
Yeah, and I absolutely love your point, Dave, about I feel like just starting to bubble up even though, too. We haven't even gotten to everybody who's kind of under the surface for this, if it's a volcano analogy here, and we're getting these awesome explosions of racing. It's been so great. And I think today we definitely saw more coming out of the woodwork, more suddenly like, oh yeah, Farm Watts is here. Wasn't at the first qualifier. Now getting into the elite race as well. Perrin showing up and throwing down again. Paradines, Dant, we saw here. Josh Harris, a new name to be bringing back to the fold here at the elite level. So absolutely cool to see, as well as all of the riders who are looking to compete at this top level that haven't been here before. Let's go ahead and take a look, though, at the results and how this ended up playing out.
Yeah, thanks, Nathan. I'd throw Junsei Honda into that list of riders that you were talking about. And we'll see how it all stacked up for them here. As Nathan says, they have just generated our official results out here. The first page will show us 10 that have definitely qualified. Nathan, I'm kind of nervous to be looking because the 19th and 20th spot will be shown to us on page 2. But in just a moment here, we'll have a chance to jump in and take a look at the top 10. So I'll be honest, Nathan, I was a little surprised that Thomas Perrin won that sprint after all the work that he did on the grade. He did a really good job of recovering out there on course. So Thomas Perrin proving that interesting when you're sprinting out of a breakaway like we were. It's not like Holden Camo was in that group, but it is going to be a confidence builder for sure for Thomas Perrin when you can close out the deal like that after really, really putting yourself out there on the grade. So that front group is 6. Boy, did they have a lot.
I was sorry, Dave. I was just wondering if some lessons perhaps learned as well here from. You get a little advantage if you go second, right? And I think the ladies maybe learned a couple of lessons there. Well, here we go with some results. Go right ahead, Dave.
Great. So there we go, confirming the win today for Thomas Perrin. There, congratulations, Thomas, showing a lot of heart today. And then, well, the Belgian Express delivered. They were in station on time with Jasper Paradines taking second, Ruben Dant for third, and Stefan Van Elst, who was quite an animator out there today, in fourth place. The Australian, Josh Harris. Great job, Josh, in fifth. Hayden Pucker. Well, Farm Watts, the breakthrough rider, rookie of the year last year. Now he's firmly in that pantheon of greats. Good job today by Hayden in sixth. There's a familiar name, Nathan. Kel Power in seventh. David Talbot, another American, getting up into eighth place. There's Mr. Honda, Junsei Honda in ninth place. That's the rider we talk about coming out of the woodwork. Well, that has passed. Now he's firmly in our top 10 with one of the world's best climbers, Ed Laverick, rounding out our top 10 out here. Nathan, I'll turn it back over to you for this pivotal page 2 of the results.
Arnie Jacobs getting through again. Good on him, the Netherlander. That's going to be Joe Lewis representing that BL13. Joe Chudik comes on through in 13th, and it's going to be Mark Santo also qualifying 14th. Tatu Kostanin followed up by Zach Neer. Now, this was that battle right there. Joe Chudik, Joe Lewis, Arnie Jacobs. That was that group all the way through for Marcus Duvall, then Andy Nichols, and Severo Nicola. The last one, and Alexander Gagnon, I know he wanted it so badly, and everybody else behind him as well, but to be that one just on the bubble, unable to pull those last little bits of effort, Dave, it's always a heartbreak.
Yeah, it really is, Nathan. And these are the riders. We're going to be racing in Yorkshire next week. And these are the riders that have to have some hope, as clearly they are knocking on the door to get into a Zwift World Series main event. And out of Portugal, it was Michelle Machado in 21st today, the American who's an up-and-comer for sure, Andrew Buffington in 22nd. So, Nathan, that's interesting to see Nicky Hug there in 23rd. So he was really the first half of the broadcast, the rider that we spoke about the most. He ends up in 23rd and not qualifying today, along with Berk Kayan, the Turkish rider there in 24th. Another Australian in 25th today, Aidan Patterson. Danish rider Rasmus Bertelsen in 26th. There's James Barnes in 27th today. Stuart Miller, the Irishman, in 28th. Alessandro Poli in 29th. And then another rider that featured in the race today, Rogerio Costa, rounding out our top 30. So, Nathan, we're not going to go any deeper into the results, as, really do feel the heartbreak for riders on page 3. So close, but they should carry that spirit into racing. We'll be back a month from now, as I said, with our qualifier. So, a lot going on. Nathan, women's race coming up.
Yeah, and what was interesting, we're going to take a look at a couple of these replays. Early on in the race, that Nicky Hug, I believe, was, trying to get out and ahead of things. I think a lot of energy was put onto the pavement that maybe he wanted back later in the race, or perhaps he knew that he had to get out ahead of it. This is the catch here of Nicky Hug, with Thomas Perrin just making that catch, and his teammate Nicky trying to hold on to that wheel, had to back off and go to the pack. And oh man, Dave, 23rd place, I think, or right around there. It looked like he was just outside of those top spots to get a qualification. Do you think he was kicking himself a little bit, or perhaps, he was throwing down 6 to 7 watts per kilogram very early on. He had qualified in the past. Interesting, though, not to make it, as we see another move here from Jasper Paradines coming across the Perrin.
Yeah, we actually, Nathan, had talked about Nicky being really one of the top riders from the qualifiers, and then how they scored points in the following Zwift World Series event. So I think that's not only a huge surprise, but it does speak to the level has gotten so high out here that, we talked about hubris. And I would imagine that he's going to be really disappointed, and maybe should have been a little more conservative in the first half of the race. But as they say, Nathan, that's racing for sure. You got to roll those dice. You think they try hard in this sport?
Well, look at that. I like the little jump there for the space bar. Did you see that? That was his drafting power up, I think, that he hit there real quickly. Look at how close it was. It was a little late, I think, on his drafting power up. It's a 30-second here, and to be that hard into a sprint to hit it, that might have been a different sprint if he would have hit that power up a little bit earlier. Here's the early moves from Hug. Love to see the effort. He made the racing interesting. It was a good setup to try and get ahead of things with Perrin, but just when the racing hit that uphill, he just could not hold on any longer. I have a feeling perhaps kicking himself a little bit for all that extra energy that was used early on from Nicky Hug here. But there's that catch there from Perrin again. That's the grade situation here at this point. The pack there watching the rest of them get away. What was really interesting to me was the Paradines attack up and over the top of a few of those bumps on the downhill. We talked a lot about the downhills being the new uphills sometimes in some of these roll through speeds and situations where perhaps you wouldn't think that you could necessarily cause any kind of serious separation. It's a little bit different in the virtual world, isn't it? There's a reality of technically being savvy at Zwift racing to know about that being kind of like being a good descender in real life. There is a comparison, in my opinion, about your timings, about when you slingshot through, when to use power on the downhill, when to get into the super tuck. And if you're not familiar with that, you can get caught out and not know what just happened, and suddenly you're 10 seconds off the back. And I think there's a learning curve that some of these riders, even at this level, are still getting when it comes to these downhills.
Well, and I think absolutely, Nathan, and I think to add on to that the riders are realizing now that you used to be able to come back from a mistake like that maybe 2 years ago in this sport, but now the level has gotten high enough that even the smaller mistakes put you at a point of jeopardy where you don't come back now, which means you just have to be that much more attentive out here. I'd like to also reference here as we get ready to reset here and move into our next main event. Look at that front group of 6 and how much some of those riders, like a rider like Hayden Pucker, Nathan, you well aware, as we watched him really just a couple of years ago, dipping his foot in the esports pool. And for him, there is so much still to learn. He's got the ability, no doubt about it, and learning how to win out of a group of 6 like that, that's the mastercraft level that you get to in a sport like this, because there's no weak link in a group like that. There's no gifts being given. And I'll be honest, riders like Thomas Perrin or Jasper Paradanes, these guys are stone cold killers when it comes to a finale. And if you win, it makes it that much sweeter because you know you beat them when they're always all in.
Yeah, speaking to the level, I mean, there's some riders, like, I think the reality of how high the level is now at this point, there's riders that did not make that qualifier that have won outright at the highest level that we've ever seen in Zwift esports. James Barnes. I mean, again, he's not a pure climber, right? It's not and there's a reality that he wins on downhill sprints a lot of times, or pure all out sprints, or is set up for a good team points race kind of situation. But the reality of a rider like him and Nikki Hug and a few others that are off the back here, not to make that qualifier, it's a pretty big eye opener to what the level actually is at this point. And then let's talk about the hunger that this open pathway is creating in the community of elite racers that's out there. To see a guy like Andrew Buffington just trying to make it alongside of a rider like James Barnes and his teammates, Joe Chudik. We're seeing a couple of others from Turbo here coming up out of the woodwork. I mean, these are definitely situations now where you can see this hunger starting to create that level just pushing higher and higher and higher. Now where people are throwing down this 6 to 7 all the way to the top of the grade, it's actually phenomenal, these efforts now.
I agree, Nathan. And one of the things that I really love, and I know I highlighted a couple times, was the rider Honda out of Japan, Yunsi. That to me is incredibly cool because when you think about it, for a rider in Japan to be able to have these opportunities, the pathway that we talked about at the top of the show is working perfectly. When you see someone like him, a dual Fairvite athlete, jumping into the top 10 in an event like this with known quantities, as you mentioned, riders like James Barnes, I mean, he's got to feel incredibly good about being there in the top 10. And for me, I feel incredibly good that he has an opportunity to race at this level.
Yeah, I absolutely love it that Junsei Honda is putting Japan on the map here when it comes to Zwift racing. It's really, really cool to see. And, I've not really heard of this athlete before, and that's another one of these situations where all of a sudden, okay, who's Junsei Honda? Where is he coming from? What's his racing like in real life, if he does race in real life, in Japan? Like, absolutely love the broad global community of cyclists now at this elite level that can come together and be represented here in the Zwift World Series. Well, that's going to be it for our men's racing. But now we have a treat for you because we're only halfway through. Having seen what just happened in the men's race, I cannot wait for the women's race. Let's have a look at the start list. The top 21 riders in the women's race will qualify for the elite races out of these riders. So, Dave, from this, the big name I think that everybody's kind of like, whoa, where did this come from? Lucy Charles Barclay, the professional top-level triathlete, is jumping in to the elite level of Zwift esports and going through the qualifying pathway to get there. We talk about this democratic process. It doesn't get more democratic than that, does it, Dave?
That's exactly what we were saying during the opening before the show, Nathan, is that really, I mean, for every other athlete in esports, that has to give you confidence in what Zwift is doing with the Zwift World Series, is that they don't change their plan and just give her a wild card. Because you're looking at one of the most decorated and celebrated triathletes of all time. So it's an honor and a privilege to have riders like that in our field. But I wanted to add, Nathan, how about the two American triathletes that are going to have a chance to race against Lucy Charles-Barclay? Because I know that she just qualified for Ironman 2025, and that's Elise Gallegos, who's going to be joining us for the first time. So I'm excited for her. What an awesome opportunity, and exactly what I love about racing on Zwift. And then the other American, who's also a triathlete, is Jackie Godby, who's been one of the most consistent American performers over the last 4 years, I would say, in esports. So those are a couple of names that I'm looking at, just kind of bouncing off of the Lucy Charles-Barclay. It's so good to see the quality of riders in this field.
Yeah, it's a big pickup. I just want to mention also by Next Esports that Lucy Charles-Barclay is riding for. That's going to kind of like even that team roster out a little bit, perhaps, with that steady, just raw power that Lucy's going to be bringing to the table next to the sprinting of Liz Van Houweling in the elite races if she does get through to the qualifier. Big call out there for Jackie Guy, because we've not seen her necessarily at this level just as of yet this year, especially in the level I think she has now. Now, a rider that I'm going to be watching out for is whether or not she can make it over the top of the climb with the main group is going to be Tiffany Penner. Tiffany Penner, we've seen her in the Zwift Racing League recently taking down every single sprint almost out on course, but can she hang on over the top of the grade? We called her Rookie of the Year last year from the women's field, and she's definitely living up to that, but can she make it through to get that series pass she most definitely wants? Tiffany Penner, definitely one to watch out for today.
Yeah, I would second that, Nathan. We call her the Winnipeg Jet, as she was dominant in a Zwift Racing League event that we watched a couple of weeks ago. We'll see if she carries that same form. How about this name, the Australian Kate Turden in our field, Nathan? She is a force to be reckoned with, along with Vicky Whitelaw. So a couple of Australians that I'm going to be keeping my eye on here to have an impact on the grade. I mean, you can just keep peeling back layers of this onion, Nathan. So many quality riders in our women's field here. Anyone else stand out to you, as we're just a few minutes away from having the ladies out on course? I could keep going for 20 minutes, so I'm going to give you another crack at bat.
Emma Belforth in the Zwift Games, we saw her walk away, and everybody just kind of let her do that. They thought, well, this will come back. Well, it didn't. She has an amazing threshold, and this is definitely a course that will reward somebody who's just got a solid, steady threshold effort. We saw that from Thomas Perrin, definitely. Once he said, all right, it's go time, it was on all the way to the finish line, and he just averaged probably around his threshold or higher all the way to the finish line. And so watch out for Emma Belforth, perhaps to try and pull something similar right along with a name right next to hers, Marlene Vjarhid, perhaps the most experienced racer in this entire lineup next to Vicky Whitelaw is Marlene Vjarhid, the Swedish rider, and Vicky Whitelaw. I think they probably have the most races out of, this is a guess, don't quote me on it, but I think they may have the most races out of everybody on this start list.
I wouldn't doubt you on that one, Nathan, for sure. I'm going to talk about a rider I think might come out of the woodwork for you here today, and that's Sarah Roach, another American triathlete. That seems to be part of the theme as we head into our qualifier here today. Sarah Roach is one of these athletes, Nathan, that I've watched level up time and time again. She punches above her weight. Another, just like Elise Gallegos, mom of a couple of kids, making the most of the opportunities that you get racing on Zwift. So again, we talked about the preparation and the opportunity, and that's really exactly what's coming together today for riders like Sarah Roach.
Yeah, Sarah Olim, another good climber. I think a steady rider as well. She's got a ton of experience actually in Zwift racing as well. Watch out for Olim. I've got to give a shout out to a rider that perhaps doesn't shine when it comes down to just pure sprints, but M. Nyquist, I think, has the steady grind, the grit to make it over the top of the climb, perhaps in a group, and get into a qualification spot. It'd be huge for M. Nyquist. As far as knowing Zwift racing, Nyquist is definitely on level with some of the best that are out there when it comes to Zwift racing tactics. Definitely somebody. Annie Poland, Dave, another one be on the watch out for who did make qualification in the past but did not grab a series pass?
Well, just like we saw with Holden Camo in the men's race, I think Sammy Stewart out of the United Kingdom is going to try to be the last sprinter in contention as they come up and over the grade. One of the riders that's going to make it really tough for her today is going to be Stephanie Sidlick. Stephanie, the professor. Nathan, certainly another one of those riders that has a tremendous amount of experience, like you were talking about with Marlene Bjarhed. I would put her up in that conversation as well. She's been racing on Zwift for a long time at a very, very high level. It's exciting, Nathan. I can feel it starting to bubble over right now as our women's field is going to be highly caffeinated, highly carbonated. It's going to be full gas. No doubt about it as we got these ladies out on course for 46.6K of racing. The grade being featured, first time these ladies will ever be racing up the grade, Nathan.
Yeah, Steph Sidlick, I think, is a big name across, but as we saw in the men's race, you do not want to trust the climbing to make it all happen. Dave, what's happening with this graphic here with these points?
Yeah, these are the top 10 riders in today's field as our notable qualifiers. Their scores from the first elite race. These riders didn't get a series pass, so they're going to be hungry for that. Or will they? We can talk about that because I think some riders like being a part of this qualifying procedure. The racing's been phenomenal, but these are the riders that didn't get a series pass so far. Nathan, we're counting it down. Who's going to make their mark out here today? This is what the Zwift World Series qualifiers are all about. Let's get ready to hit out in Watopia. It's peak performance time.
Now heading out on to Watopia, the riders getting moving, and right from the get-go, none other than Lucy Charles Barclay says, look, Ironman triathlons, that's what it's all about out here for me today, and I'm just going to make it difficult right from the get-go. I'd like to ride alone, if you don't mind. And Kate McCarthy says, don't let her go. Next has gotten this great pickup, and Coalition is looking to respond over the top. McCarthy, this is absolutely insane from the get-go. It's actually Larissa, it looks like. Also Luno, the Canadian, not a rider. This is what we're talking about, Dave. Larissa Luno. Who is this? What's happening here? Suddenly out the front with Lucy Charles Barclay. We've got 4 seconds already.
Well, and already, if you're Larissa, you're like, this is an incredible experience. Here I am going toe-to-toe with Lucy Charles Barclay. So, Nathan, yeah, this is going to be one of the things that we really get to celebrate today is having Lucy out here with us. She is not a triathlete who is in the waning part of her career. This is currently one of the best on the planet. Good job by Larissa Lunel here, the Canadian, that we're watching as she kind of sits in no woman's land. Jackie Godby moving up to the front. So it's going to be really active out here, Nathan. There's no doubt about it. They're not going to wait around. Yes, it's 46.6K. Yes, the grade is a good distance from now, but just because of the spirit of the competition out here, and Nathan, I think it's fair to say that someone like Lucy Charles Barclay is always going to bring extra to any race that she's in.
Jackie Godby says enough of that and closes things right on down for Sars Esports here. Kalman now looking to come over the top. It looks like actually the Polish rider, Annie Poland, Rammert now to the top front as well. Now it's all going to back right on down, I believe. Solid 4.5 to 5 watts per kilogram on this little uphill gradient as they are going to take a right-hand turn into the Titans Grove climb. There's Jackie Godby, and watch out for this woman. When it comes to pure watts, there's nobody out on course, I think, that can match it. So Godby here now sets the tempo, closes things down, and says that's not going anywhere, because that could have got dangerous real fast, right, Dave? Like if they let 10, 15, then you start losing motivation, and Charles Barkley's able to do her thing off the front, and it could be game over that early for the win. And then everybody kind of starts thinking, why do I go with this if there's still over 20 qualification spots left?
Yeah, you know what, Nathan, that was going to be my exact point, is Lucy's going to do what Lucy's going to do. So I wouldn't sacrifice my chances by chasing her back. Now, I definitely, with So there's 23 spots for the women here, slightly more than the men. The men were at 19, but 23 for the women here. So if it goes from 23 to 22 because Lucy's gone up the road, that's a problem that I'm willing to deal with, to tell you the truth. Now, I do think that there's going to be riders like Jackie Godby that almost that internal, what makes you into a world-class athlete, it's sort of like a police dog. It's not something that you can turn on or off. You either are that or you aren't. And she is absolutely a fighter. And I would think for her that she's not going to let, even though, I mean, she's going to be well aware of who Lucy Charles-Barclay is. And for these riders like Gallegos and Godby, racing with Lucy's got to be cool. And I think that's going to bring a little bit more out of them out here. You've seen it, Nathan, in your career. It's even happened to you, I'm sure. As the marked rider in a race, you have a huge target on your back. Everything changes. But this is such a different scenario out here. As sure, it's going to be about a race win. And I think Lucy Charles-Barclay is here to win a race today. But it's also about making it into the first 23 and getting one of those coveted spots to race in a couple of weeks back here out on this exact same course.
Amelia Velte continues to punch up into 7 watts per kilogram momentarily over and over again, getting set up for main climb. Not main climb, excuse me, actually in the Titans Grove. It's going to be a punchy over and over again. Nice undulations until they get into the actual Queen of the Mountains section. And tends to be a place that you can draft unless a rider really throws down some serious orange numbers over the top of one of these little bumps. We are taking a look here. There's Amelia Velte as she makes her way to the front, and she does 6.5 watts per kilogram. Look at the consternation on the face. She's concentrated. This is a move. She's actually trying to make something happen. As Charles-Barclay jumps right on the wheel here, this is going to get a little bit of fireworks maybe going from the main pack, as I see Godsby, Harmsen as well now, Meyer, Nyquist, all kind of starting to respond. They're making their way to the front. There isn't a separation yet, but they're definitely trying to mark this to make sure nothing gets anywhere.
You can definitely look around and see the quality of riders next to you. And I'll be honest, Nathan, if I look over and I see that Kate Turden is right next to me, I'm not going to be too worried about my positioning in the group. I would think that I'm in the right space. So for some riders who might be on that bubble, right now is a critical part of this race. Not overextending yourself, burning a match that you don't need to burn, that you're going to pay a price for later. As we saw in the men's race, a few riders actually were a little too animated at this point, and maybe that was their game plan and things just didn't roll the way that they wanted it to. But certainly right now, I think that unless I'm someone of the quality of a Godby or at that level, I'm going to be pretty careful with my efforts at this point, because this will explode on the grade. I think everybody's accepted that fact, Nathan.
One thing to pay, I agree 100% on that there's definitely most of the riders are going to be just watching for what's going to happen on the grade. One thing to pay attention to that we saw in the men's race was who is sitting in and not doing any work whatsoever. That was exactly what we saw from Thomas Perrin. He never touched the front. Amelia Velte, though, continues to head to the front and just make it really, really difficult when it comes to holding on to perhaps her wheel at this point, forcing others to try and hold on. And you know, I don't know, like, personally, I would be sitting in a little bit saying that's not going to go anywhere. I'll let other riders cover that. And if it does try and get away or go anywhere, I'm going to make a big jump across maybe to somebody like Amelia Velte. Now, Emma Belforth, as she makes her way to the front, I might kind of have an alarm bell going off, because we saw her in Zwift Games do exactly that from exactly this section, and everyone just kind of watched her walk away and win the race. So perhaps a couple alarm bells going off.
That was, I would say, last year, Nathan. I guess that was in this calendar year, wasn't it? The end of last season at the Zwift Games. Those Belforth performances were the most stunning for me, ultimately, all year long. I think she shocked the esports world, to tell you the truth. Nobody thought that could be done at the time. Would you share that sentiment, talking about Emma Belforth?
Yeah, I believe everybody in the pack said that's coming back. They always, there's no reason to chase that. She's not going to hold this. And then she ended up doing it. She ended up having this crazy, amazing threshold. She's a mountain bike rider in real life. She likes to just set an insane pace and go with it. That's mountain bike XC racing, is you just race your race and try and drop everybody over and over and over again. And that's what she did. And she proved that it could happen. And so I think you're right at this point. Knowing that rider and knowing you can't quite let that get away in that kind of a way, they're going to cover things a little bit quicker. But as you can see, as they head downhill, and they've done the main undulations before the Titans Grove, Queen of the Mountain, they will be collecting a single draft power-up at the top of this Queen of the Mountain in just a moment. And we saw a lot of very interesting uses of that power-up in the men's race. Will we see them reserved for the finish line like we saw in the men's race for some of these riders? Are we going to see a lot of them being used early on? Big question marks to be answered in a moment here.
Well, Nathan, I think that makes a very interesting point, because if you go back to the men's race, you remember Nikki Hoog using that power-up, the draft power-up that everybody gets, pretty early there. As a matter of fact, extremely early there. That maybe should have been an indicator that he wasn't on a good day, to tell you the truth, because that was surprising, to tell you the truth. Almost like he misfired it, to tell you the truth. Because if you were thinking about the end goal, you really needed that power-up at the end of the race. And I think all of the women who would have watched the men's race in most cases, I think that they're going to have a feel that unless I'm into that exceptional day and into, you know, the kind of riders that truly believe and have every right to, that they're in the top 5 riders in this race, I think everybody else is going to play this much more in a conservative manner out here as we jump in with Kate McCarthy here. Another up-and-coming rider, in this case out of New Zealand.
Yeah, 6.1 watts per kilogram, 6.8 here for a moment, 400 watts. So she's really on the attack on this Titans Grove, interesting enough. Jackie Godby keeping the pace high at the front, not really wanting this to get away. Belforth now starting to respond. Marlene Jarheed, also a rider here, trying to make sure that they are involved. This could start to create a little bit of a split. We're seeing riders falling off the back here now at this point, and staying involved but not risking too much is what everybody's thinking, I think, at the front end.
Nathan, I'm with you, and I really think that this might be, you know, we've talked through the years about the Eddie Merckx concept of tête de la course, you race from the front. Well, I have a feeling that that's exactly what's happening now, as at the back, we're going to see riders getting shelled left, right, and center out here, as we haven't even hit the hard climb of the day, and then you can see riders getting dropped out of this group. 23 is the magic number. This could get whittled down to 23 by the time we get down to the bottom of the grade, Nathan.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting situation if it does, because at that point it's going to be about whether or not you have climbing legs in a chase group. We still got plenty of riders here, though. As I look through, we're out to 37. I believe it is, that have made the main group. Kate's still off the front, though. She's still like, look, I've got a gap. I might as well try and go with this here. So I'm going to continue on. 3.7 watts per kilogram, it looks like, coming from her. The speeds, is it going to be high enough to hold off that pack? At the front of the pack, they're only doing 3.8 as well. I think Kate McCarthy at this point isn't necessarily thinking she's going to go anywhere. She's just keeping it steady, as Roberta Busoni now closes it down for Team Castelli.
Yeah, I think for Kate McCarthy, there's a little bit of a statement, a little bit of a test of the legs, and showing a few people the back door. You're not welcome at this party right now. And Kate now going to settle back in. No harm, no foul there. Actually just lifting the pace out here. As you said, Nathan, we bring this down under 40 riders now fighting for these 23 spots. We'll see if anybody's able to rejoin this group or ride their way back in, but I'm going to guess that's not going to be too common out here today. We jump in with Roberta Busoni.
Loving the setup here. Got the fan going on. Got a couple of books. Light reading going on maybe as well, perhaps, as the watts are lighter for a moment.
Yeah. She's not throwing posters up on the wall. That looks like it's a higher level sophistication in that pain cave. You'd expect nothing less from our Italian Zwifters, Nathan. It's not like a Wisconsin garage, is it?
No, it's not. It's definitely not. It's 3.2 watts per kilogram on the right. Anything in that 3.5, 3.8 or less, they're going to be in a very calm. All they're really doing is making sure they have position in this group. That's the only reason that 3.8 really is being used at all, is just to make sure they're in and amongst things. Now, we did see in the men's race that there were some attacks through this section. I'm not sure we're going to see that from the ladies here. I have a feeling that they are looking forward to the race of attrition, that they learned a lot as well from what we saw in the race prior, where, you know, everything actually popped off on the grade, and that most of the effort that was used, actually the effort that was used in these sections of the course, did not actually end up paying off. So perhaps because of that, we'll see things a little bit calmer through here. But if somebody's got a plan, they say, look, I want to try and get away, and I'm going to trust that everyone's going to watch, they may still kick it off. But I have a feeling things are going to stay pretty calm until we hit the grade.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what the 2023 World Ironman champion, Lucy Charles-Barclay, is going to do with this. Will she be the one that helps force the selection? You know, Stephanie Sidlick, a great climber in this group, and I'm just seeing Tiffany Penner's name popping now. If Tiffany Penner is in the front group, Nathan, that goes to the line, she has a very good shot of winning this race outright today. When you talk about an up-and-comer, that Canadian is truly the complete package. As we watched her in Zwift Games last March, having her really first international breakthrough results, finding the top 20. This is going to be Jackie Godby that we're jumping in with now. Feel like we spent a lot of time with Jackie down in her pain caves. Jackie now living in St. Louis, Missouri. She's a professor, I believe, working in the medical field at Washington University. Back in with the group right now. Things pretty chill, Nathan. I mean, as chill as it can be in the mid-4s. So it's not exactly a free ride in this group, that's for sure.
Yeah, it looked to me like fighting for position a little bit there, just to make sure that as you do hit the bumps, that you're not at the back of the pack. You actually talked about that a little bit, Dave, just a moment ago, and I think that is the way that this is going to play out, is that can we safely, slowly whittle this down to exactly what we need it to be? And that's kind of the safest way of the race, isn't it, Dave? You can guarantee that you're going to punch a ticket by simply staying in the group and watching it just whittle its way down to 23 riders. And if it does that, you've got exactly what you're looking for without taking the risk of using any kind of energy off the front and staying within that pack that's going to secure you that spot. And so far, that's the kind of racing I think that we've seen at this moment. As, some of the riders, though, Belforth, I would say, Godby, obviously Lucy Charles-Barclay with that initial kick off the front, I think trying to say, look, I want to see what I can do to take the win, how I match up against these ladies here right now, and kind of like prove your mettle a little bit. We should see that, I think, from a couple of the standout riders here. But I think a lot of this pack are looking for that secure of the qualifying spot into the elite races and may ride that way we were talking about.
Yeah, I love that dynamic we're in with Elise Gallegos right now here. She's also racing out of Texas. But Nathan, yeah, to follow up on that point, I really do think that right about now, actually, even though we're not down to that 23 spots that qualify, this is going to turn into a pure classic bike race out here. When you look at the quality of women, the motivation in this group, and the diverse range of talent that we've got, riders all the way from Emma Belforth to Kate Turden, to riders like Elise Gallegos that you've got on screen right now. We were talking about Lucy Charles-Barclay in this field, who won Ironman 2023. Well, Elise Gallegos just qualified for Ironman. I believe it was even just a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. But when you talk about a huge spectrum going from esports to the full Ironman distance, some really accomplished athletes in this group. Boy, that's a great shot at a peloton that really, I think, feeling a little bit of trepidation, to tell you the truth. That peloton is wider than it is long. right now, which tells me that everybody's got their head on a pivot, looking around at what everybody else is doing, not wanting to overextend yourself, and truly, at this point, recognizing the quality of this field as we jump in with one of the very mighty Swedish riders, Jessica Edqvist here.
You saw the concentration, the seriousness on Elise Gallegos' face there for a moment. Like, she looked focused, Dave. And I know she's been putting in some serious work, coached by Alex Coe. Shares a lot of her workouts and training over her social media, actually, about how being a mom, balancing family life, as well as racing esports at this top level and training for Ironmans. This is an athlete who takes this seriously, but also has the grace and the lightheartedness to be an awesome community member. So you saw that face, though, and that's not the usual Elise I see on social media.
I've never seen her like that.
She is focused today.
And she is a bright light, too. I mean, like, I highly recommend you follow Elise Gallegos, as she's always got a big smile, a lot of joy from that woman. This is going to be the Scott. I've always been a big fan of Natalie Stevenson. Now, this is a rider, Nathan, maybe a little bit under the radar, but she's been around just notching results all over the place. Natalie Stevenson is someone that you never want to sleep on out here. I definitely have her making my top 23 out here today. I wouldn't want to try to pick who's not going to make that top 23, because honestly, Nathan, this group right now, you have made the first and most dramatic selection of the day. Being in this group tells me that you're at least in the neighborhood of the world's best. It doesn't quite punch your ticket for being in that group yet, but you certainly are right there. Thereabouts, as they say. Peloton, pretty relaxed. We're about, right now, Nathan, still a good distance away from the bottom of the grade. So I wouldn't expect too much animation here in the next couple of minutes, to tell you the truth.
Unless you have a Jackie Godby in the back.
Which means it should kick off.
To the front.
Right.
Right? Because suddenly Godby says, well, 4-5. Let's see how this goes. You know, I mean, taking a look here at Lucy Charles Barclay with the Red Bull helmet on. She's a Red Bull athlete, so cool to see. And now with that newly donned next presented by Insured kit, that's going to be something for me to get used to, Dave, to see the names Lucy Charles Barclay, pro triathlete, in that next esports kit. It's really great to see actually here. But I think you're right. It's going to be pretty calm for quite a while here yet at this point. But your point about making this top 37, because that's what we got right now, it was the initial selection. You're 100% right. And honestly, with it being 23 spots, you know, doing your math, it's only 14 that don't make it. It's really everybody here, I think, has a hope, and they know it. They know it, and that's why it's so calm at this point, because there's a lot of hopes that could be dashed in this pack at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's slightly more will get in than don't get in. It almost feels like your high school class, how many of you are going to college, right? It's like, I really want to be in that college group, and I think that's the same here, as these riders really want to be in that group of 23. But there's times in a bike race where you have to recognize that you can't make an impact right now. What you really need to do is stay chill, stay calm, focus on the plan, and recognize that you want to come into the grade with clear eyes, a full heart, and let it rip, because it's all going to go down there. You're either going to have the legs or you aren't on the grade today.
Emilia Valde continues to just kind of be at the front, marking the front. 2.9. I mean, the heart rates are so chill here at this point. Well, I spoke a little soon, perhaps there. Engstrom up into 155, 154. She may be a rider, though, that just beats a little bit high, like in the setup here. You can see right there she's, interesting enough, she's using, I believe, first person, not first person point of view, but view number 1. So it's a third person point of view, excuse me, rather than that view, what we would say 3, which is a 3 on the keyboard if you're going to hit the keyboard or change it on your companion app. A lot of riders, different opinions about what is your preferred racing view. Personally, for drafting, I like to use the first person point of view that we would call it, or what is on the keyboard, view 3, so you don't actually see your avatar. All you see is what's around the right from the what would be eyeballs of your avatar, what you would actually see if you were actually your avatar, and that's personally my favorite. Sarah Roach here though says, "Look, I like the view off the front," so she's going to take the literal first person off the front view at this point as she makes a little bit of a move.
Yeah, Sarah Roach has become an athlete I'm a big fan of. She works so hard. Now, Sarah has been a marathoner, relatively new to esports, but she's made some big strides forward, and you got to call it when you see it. Punching above your weight. She is up there right now in the thick of it. And another rider who's got to be thrilled to be racing right now with the Ironman champion from 2023. Yeah, they're starting to push a little bit. There is no rest for the weary out here. So, Nathan, I was looking at it, the automatic qualifiers. There's 24 athletes that will be joined by 23 athletes coming out of this group that we're looking at right now. So there's a few of the teams like Hexagon or Movistar, Cryo, Wahoo, and Coalition that have both a men's and a women's team, and I love that. I think what's really encouraging is seeing that next it looks like they're starting to get together a women's program. They started with one of the best in the world, so it shouldn't be too hard to recruit other riders onto that program. So that's something I like to see for sure, is the growth in esports. And having both combined programs, men's and women's, absolutely the way to go.
Rolling on through this little banner here. Nothing given or rewarded there at that banner as they're still looking forward to the grade. Little move here from Belfort, though. Belfort's putting out 6 watts per kilogram. No, 6.3. That's going to get a little bit of response. Lucy Gadd here up and out of the saddle as she looks to try and position herself well for a good draft. She's not looking to make her way to the front. Probably doesn't think this is necessarily going to go much of anywhere, but everybody's going to have alarm bells now going as Belfort, Milia Velte, Sarah Roach, Roberta Bassoni, Sofia Gaviani. These are all big names as Lucy Charles Barkley now starts to make her way to the front. We're starting to see things separate now. Will the elastic snap even before we hit the grade?
It's certainly possible, Nathan. So I have a feeling that this is exactly what makes esports so amazing, is you never know when it's going to kick off. And a rider like Emma Belforth, she controls so much of her destiny by the ability that she's got. So Belforth, once she flexes, everybody responds, and you can see that there's quite a reaction now, but I think things might start to settle down a little bit. But as soon as you say that, I would expect somebody like Jackie Godby to attack over the top. So the women are not going to lay back, and there you go. It looks like riders either positioning or starting. Well, no, it's really just trying to make sure that you don't get caught out. Nathan, you called it correctly, as positioning is critical, being able to sit up in the sweet spot, trying to limit the danger that you're facing out there. Because if you're hanging at the back of the group, there's times when it's maybe not you letting the wheel go, but that split opens up, and all of a sudden you're on the wrong side of the gap.
Belforth there went up to, I saw 178, I believe, beats per minute for a moment. So that wasn't just a little bit of a dig. That was, that was definitely an effort put out there for a moment to see what she could perhaps get away with or cause a lead group to form there. That, I saw her sit up there though and take a little bit of a drink, look to get her a little bit of rest. She definitely was testing the waters to see how everybody was feeling. Interesting enough, though, all back together at the front. Now it's down to 2.6. They're really starting to calm down, it looks like here. But always the same names, though. Have you noticed that, Dave? The same names are at the front that you can kind of get an idea of where their mindset is at. That, look, if something goes, I need to cover it. I'm here to make sure I make a lead group. Well, there's other names that are perhaps trusting and just letting things happen at the front as it will need to, and saying, look, I'm going to sit in and get as much reserves as I possibly can, while those at the front kind of fight for position a little bit. We don't got to worry about that just yet because they're believing nothing's actually going anywhere till a little later.
Yeah, it's interesting, Nathan, tactically now, what is going to happen before we get to the bottom of the grade? Do they really stay together like this? I mean, one thing that I think we're witnessing is that the quality of the field has gotten so high that riders just don't want to swing for the fences because they realize that they put themselves into a very, very undesirable position when you get caught out after making a big effort and then they come up on you. So I really think that riders like Annie Poland, you can see, I mean, you don't get much more chill than Annie is right now.
Yeah, Annie Poland here, 143 beats per minute, probably in around her zone 2 or so, chilling. As you can see, 90 RPM, spinning well. Definitely, I believe she may be also streaming over on Twitch, most likely. A lot of these riders do have their own either YouTube or Twitch streams that they do throw down, so make sure to go check those out and throw them some support, as it's a big undertaking, actually. It's not like regular gaming, is it, Dave, necessarily, to get a Twitch stream or a stream set up with fans and a bike and all the other components that you need in order to put on any kind of a meaningful presentation. So it's a big effort from these riders, and really appreciated that they're able to share all that with the community.
It's been incredible to watch that community grow over the last 4 or 5 years. That's for sure. So, all right. Back in with our front group. There's really no danger of them getting caught at this point, as Chase Group 2 sitting far enough back. I don't think that they're going to become a part of this conversation again, so we can really focus in on what we've got. I mean, you got some of the true hitters in esports racing up in this group. But Nathan, I want to focus on some of the riders that are going to be looking for that breakthrough performance out here today as well. Lucy Gadd, we were in camera with her, and Marisol Ortiz right now. These are some new names of riders that are clearly just right on that threshold of making their mark. As we said, if you're in this group, you can feel really good. You can check a box next to world-class esports racer. I really think that's fair to say, Nathan. If you've made this selection, you might have a ways to go. You might still have a big delta to look forward to, but you've already made some big, big strides to be riding in this group with these women.
This is Marisol Ortiz. She's currently living in Denmark, but I believe, let's see if I get this correct, but is it going to be Colombia that she was born and
That's
raised
interesting because Marisol, I believe, means butterfly, if I'm not wrong.
Huh.
Having to look that
yeah,
up.
so Marisol here, she's got 483 races. She's representing SARS Esports and also rides for Riot in the community. It's a good pickup for them. You know, I'm not super familiar with her, so I think this is a fairly recent pickup, and it'd be really cool to see if she can. You know, she's got a solid 4.73 watts per kilogram, I believe, for 20 minutes. So this is going to be a race, I think, that favors her. Very light rider who can take on, I think, a climb like this. She might not like the points or pure rulers type rides. So this is one where she might be able to make that initial break into that top 23 and secure her spot. So big day here, I think, for Marisol.
Yeah, absolutely. This is Christine Schneider now, the German rider that we're in cam with. It's amazing that we're able to see so many riders around the globe in this field. Have a nice chance right now with 25.7K of racing remaining. Just to remind everybody that this is our qualifier. 23 of these women will be racing again on the same course, as they'll be joining the 24 riders who have a series pass. There's 8 different teams based on the Zwift Games of last year and their results. They earned those spots. They're able to give them to 3 selected riders, but those teams can be joined by more riders who are able to qualify out of this field, like Movistar would be a good example, looking to reinforce their team in a couple of weeks here with some more riders. The top 3 riders on the main events in the World Series will score points for their teams. Looks like Lucy Charles Barclay back up on the front here, Nathan. It's always going to be having alarm bells ringing.
Saw a lot of medals above Christine Schneider's riding setup there. I wonder what those are from. Cool to see some in real life accomplishments coming through. She's a level 100 Zwifter. She's got 500. Let me see here. What is that right? Oh, so her Zwift race 436. Excuse me, races. So Schneider obviously very experienced. Here's another rider. Doesn't get much more experience than this. Vicky Whitelaw in real life. She's been a TT champion. She's going to like it if it does get off the front here with a few of the top athletes, because she's definitely somebody who's got an engine that can do some work to try and break things away here. Vicky looking pretty serious, as well as steady here at this point, just controlling the effort, making sure she's I think really conserving as much energy as she possibly can, right where she needs to be, riding for Aeonian, Dave. That is a team that knows what they're doing.
Absolutely, Nathan. It's interesting when we go into the pain caves of our riders, everybody looks pretty serious out here. Nobody playing around. Want to correct myself, as Marisol does not mean butterfly. It means sea and sun is what that name translates to. So my bad there. Beautiful name.
I think now we're starting to get
Nathan
very close
translate
to the
to?
beginning of the grade. What does Nathan translate? Nathan translates to gift of God. That's what good Nathan translates
There
to.
you
I
go.
appreciate that, Dave. So 3.1 on the front here. Now, as you can see from Barclay, as they're about to take a right-hand turn in a few moments here, and it's going to really kick off. This is going to be the moment that everybody's been waiting for, and I have a feeling we might see a little bit of a battle for the front, because you don't necessarily want to be at the back if you're looking to fade climb this thing, do you?
Well, that point well said. And even if you're at the front, it's going to be every woman for herself out here, as this is really going to help us sort out who the best climbers in esports are outside of the women who have already qualified. But this is going to be a real test out here. I got to think riders like M. Nyquist, Sarah Roach, they're really looking forward to this opportunity to see how you stack up against the world's best. This is going to be Rhiannon Denton now up and out of the saddle. Still looking quite
Jackie
spry,
Gabby here.
I must say.
5.7, 5.9 from Gabby here. Rhiannon Denton now as well, up into 4.7. I think she knew that was coming, actually. You see that? She moved right to the front here. And now the pace is starting to pick up, because they're all looking to make sure that they're in those first 5, 6 to 10 at this point, because they do not want to be spit out the back as they hit the grade. Right-hand turn in just a moment here, and it's going to start getting into this churn, I think, trying to reserve, trying to get to the front, trying to reserve, trying to get to the front as they fight for those top spots before they hit the grade. Here we go, Dave, about to kick off.
Yeah, absolutely. You can really feel that we're about to move into a whole new phase out here. This is the prelude to the nightmare that many riders are going to be going through as this level is going to lift. And already at the back, you can see some riders starting to struggle as that goes. That is your classic spearhead shape of the peloton right now. It doesn't get any more spearheaded than that. So there is a sweet spot. There's riders who are trying to force the pace here. This is going to be a really dynamic couple of K leading us into what's going to be the crux of the situation out here on the grade.
We saw it in the men's race. Next Esports took this on from the get-go. Bottom to top, Thomas Perrin. Will Lucy Charles Barkley do the same thing as she leads the pack right into this climb? 5.7 watts per kilogram. Here comes Kate McCarthy. It's going to be Meyer as well. Harper, Balfour, Smithers is there, as well as Whitelaw. I see 3 Aeonian kids all lining up on the right-hand side of the road here. In with the cam here with Lucy Charles Barkley. She gets up and out of the saddle. 5.7 watts per kilogram. It's going to be Breely as well to the front, but Barclay now taking over again, 6.4 as they get into the 7% gradients of the grade.
Well, and these are the real difference makers, Nathan. We haven't even mentioned Leonie Harper yet, one of those Aeonian riders that's clearly ready for this battle royale. And here we go. So Lucy Charles Barkley is up there. Anna Brearley's got to be really happy with the ride that she's having. Kate McCarthy, she was active early. Vicky Whitelaw is right there. And here comes Jackie Godby. So Nathan, this is where, and Tiffany Penner is there. So Penner having a fantastic ride, still back in the wheels, looking to make what's certainly going to be a selection coming up here in the next couple of minutes. It is on here now on the grade.
Yeah, Tiffany Penner for Cryo DT. You could see that jersey there for just a moment. Now, looking to try and hang on to be right in that top 7 still at this point. Now, the main riders I'd be watching out for pure climbers, Belforth, Busoni, McCarthy. And Barkley is exactly where she needs to be, right on the wheels of those who are the main threats out there today when it comes to climbing. Godby on the back of that pack as well. Good to see Godby able to make this initial. And this initial punch, it does get really steep, but they do have that little bit of a reprieve in the middle of it, and that could be just enough for some of these riders that aren't necessarily the kind of climbers like we see with Belfort, like we see at the front with Busoni and McCarthy, able to just hang on, but they got to close it down right about now, as we do see Brearley falling off from the pace being set by Belfort. Penner's off the back a little bit here now as well. We do have a main group. This actually, as you can see, Barkley on the back there. We see Busoni as well as Godby. McCarthy there in the Roca Corba kit now, and Belfort pressing the pace off the front. So that's the main group now at this point, just behind them with Meyer on the chase as well as Penner.
Wow. Look at that shot right there. Says it all, Nathan. We are going to start carving this group up, no doubt about it. So this could settle into, I mean, honestly, maybe even 5 different groups, as every woman trying to find her rhythm. Emma Belfort just going ballistic right now. Look at this human wattage cottage. Her heart rate touching on 189 right now. So she is all in with this monster effort. This is the group that Belfort, Jackie Godby's made the selection. Kate McCarthy is there, and Lucy Charles Barkley. Then it's just a couple of seconds back to Roberta. So Roberta trying to get up an inch. It'll be fun to watch what happens with her as Natalie Stevenson then leading that next group through. And there's some big names back in that group like Penner, Brearley, Leonie Harper. Nathan, this is fantastic racing right now here on the grade. But it's Belfort, Godby, McCarthy, and Charles Barkley making the first selection. I think Busoni is just about, boy, talk about no woman's land right there, Nathan. Can Busoni get up into that front group?
That's a good question here, Dave, because having to chase immediately after it levels out is not what you necessarily want, but she may be just within enough striking distance to grab on to the wheels immediately and get a little bit of a draft here, some reprieve, depending on how Jackie Godby plays it. Because Godby, after Belfort put down that effort, she went to the front and said, no, we're not slowing down. Godby over the top of this, 4.8, 4.7. Barkley here now looking to sit in. Perhaps now Godby backs off. Okay, so I was wondering whether or not she was going to press the issue a little bit. She backs off to 2.8, sits up a tad. Now poor Busoni has to actually make a chase on the flat rather than get the reprieve that the rest of those riders got. And that's actually only going to cause it to open up a little bit more, most likely, because they're going to have that little bit more of a punch. Busoni's going to get into her rhythm now at this point. Behind there, it's Kalman, Stevenson, Meyer, Vjarhi, Penner, Brearley, and Schneider, all in a group together trying to chase this front group down. Oh, Busoni might be able to do it. She's just 2 seconds, but this is your leaders here with now Barkley onto the switchbacks up into 6.6.
I'm really pulling for Roberta here right now, Nathan, as she's just sitting that 3 seconds off of the front group. Now, is she better advised to go back to group 2? She's playing with fire right now, as if you do blow up, all of a sudden, I think that there's enough spots here that she's got enough wiggle room. I love the heart that she's shown. Racer's gonna race, as we say. Marlene Bjarhead is leading now. Well, or it looks like there is another group coming together here, the Bjarhead group. So, wow, Nathan, these 4 go clear. Let's just go ahead and let that ship sail. If we do, that leaves 19 spots of the 23 qualifiers that will transfer out of today into the racing in 2 weeks. But I would have to say, Nathan, at this point, Emma Belfort, Kate McCarthy, Jackie Godby, and Lucy Charles Barkley, I don't know how much of my resources I want to dedicate to try to chasing these women back rather than solidifying my spot in those top 23. This is a tough, I think Busoni is smart now to go back to that second group. It's a tough road to hoe.
You see Belfort continue. Yeah, it is a tough road. Belfort here now continuing at 6+ watts per kilogram, trying to snap things still, it looks like here, at least keep the pace as high as she possibly can. Belfort is on a mission, it looks like to me. Now up into 7 watts per kilogram. Dave, She is doing everything she can, it seems to me, to say, no, I do not want anybody to come with me. I want this to be my solo race off the front. Barclay responds. Godby responds as well. Now all back together as McCarthy starting to take over at the front. And Godby sits in, it looks like 4.7. It looks like actually Godby looking for a little reprieve, perhaps, or at least not looking to take over the front, as you were right. Bassoni now going backwards. The Stevenson group, good call on Natalie Stevenson here, Dave. Natalie Stevenson, so consistent time and time again, and now I think we're getting into her wheelhouse a little bit more as she likes it when it goes uphill. Loving to see that Natalie Stevenson's currently sitting within the top 10, along with Bjarhid and Meyer, big names when it gets into this kind of racing.
So these 4 riders, Nathan, if they do stay clear, they leave 19 spots left, 23 total spots for the women. But I don't think that these ladies are coming back, Nathan. This gap going out right now. The quality. These are the 4 riders of the apocalypse, to tell you the truth. I don't know that there's a harder Zwifter to drop than Lucy Charles Barclay would be, as Jackie Godby just going blow for blow here with Kate McCarthy and Emma Belforth. But these 4, Nathan, I think that they're on their own planet as far as racing goes out here today. And that's what I was talking about with Bassoni, where I think I would just go back to that the 19 spots left rather than try to turn this group of 4 into 5.
McCarthy, interesting enough, now taking over at the front. 5.3 watts per kilogram. Bassoni, as you said, yep, right back in and leading that main group. She's actually brought her heart rate way down, too. Bassoni definitely has calmed down. As you can see, though, Roca Corba not slowing down at the front. Belforth actually responding. Maybe Kate sensing that the ladies here want to chill out a little bit where she doesn't. Godby, my question, is she on the rivet here at this point? I have a feeling that Jackie Godby here is doing what she can to make it over the top of this with these other riders that tend to be maybe a little bit more of the climbing type. Great on Godby here. Now Charles Barkley here. Now a little bit of gap opening up here. Looks like she's within herself, though. Doesn't look like she's something I'm not seeing a ton of pain on that face just yet, but there is a gap she might need to close down, but I think she's got it within her.
I would agree completely. I don't think that you drop Lucy Charles Barkley for good. You might open up a little bit of a gap, but you can see that she's, absolutely. I don't think that anybody could be in their comfort zone on a climb like this. Nathan, in my mind, Jackie Godby is very closely marking Lucy, and it makes a lot of sense. Right now, Kate McCarthy is the one who's really pushing the pace here, as that New Zealander's got to be ecstatic with the ride that she's put together out here. Looks like we're going to go back on course a little bit and pick up the Natalie Stevens. This is chase 1 that we're looking at here. Natalie Stevenson, Marlene Bjarhed, and Nicole Meyer here. Good ride from Meyer today as well, inserting her name into a very high level group.
Yeah, it's the main chase group out on course. 3 riders here with Stevenson, Bjarhed, and Meyer. Bassoni now going back a little bit there between them. Kate McCarthy and Lucy Charles Barkley now making a move at the front, it looks like, and actually dropping Belforth and Godby. Belforth looking to close things down. This group can just barely see, the group we were just with can just barely see McCarthy, Barclay, and Belforth and Godby up the road. Godby actually 6 seconds back now at this point. Belforth kind of in between the two have now separated themselves. It's getting up into the really steep sections of this course now at this point. McCarthy onto the 12% gradient as Barkley holds on at the 6.5 watts per kilogram. These two now getting the serious separation. It's going to be Roca Corba as well as next presented by Insured that are going to get the distance. Godby doing what she can. She's got 5 point some for quite a while, and I think she'll still have it over the top. The question is whether or not these other two can have continuance, because I think Belfort and Godby have the effort to bring these two back, perhaps.
Boy, that's interesting because I would argue that, Nathan. I think these two are gone, baby, gone, to tell you the truth. My estimation is that Godby digging really, really deep, trying to hold on to that wheel and went all the way into the red zone, touching on the purple zone. And that's the danger that we were talking about. That was exactly why I was recommending that Roberto Bassone go back to chase one at the time, because too much time in the red zone and you can blow a gasket out here. And this race has changed its dynamic incredibly. Now, Kate McCarthy is having the ride of her life here in our qualifier. Charles Barkley with her. So this is going to be Emma Belfour sitting third wheel. Look how much time she's given up here just in the last 2 minutes. She's now at 10 seconds back. Godby going back to the next group, it looks like. My estimation is that Jackie Godby actually will be picked up by the Natalie Stevenson group here over the next couple of Ks. We'll have to watch very closely how that goes, but it's a two-woman race. It's these two locking horns right now. Kate McCarthy, what a phenomenal performance. We expected a lot from Lucy Charles Barkley, Nathan, coming into this race, and she's absolutely delivered. So these two are going clear. Again, remembering it's 23 women that qualify. You don't want to play around. Godby's still safe up here, as no doubt I think that they had enough of a gap, Nathan, that they don't have too much to worry about. Tiffany Penner, Leonie Harper, look at this, the Polish rider Joanna Kalman now in the conversation as she's up into the top 10. Stephanie Sedlick, Nathan, was able to make the most of that climb, sitting in the top 12 right now as we turn our attention to the finale of this race. Kate McCarthy and Lucy Charles Barkley. What do you think? Do they go to the line together, Nathan, or do they start attacking each other with old school fury out here?
It's, I think that there's going to be a lot of attacks here, actually. And Lucy Charles Barkley, as you can see, up and over the top there real quickly. And I have a feeling that it's not all said and done, that's for sure. Now, this is the chase group with Stevenson. Now, we were with them for a second, and they were about to catch Godby. The time gaps are really interesting out on course right now. This seems to just be like completely, the levee is broken at this point. The dam is gone. And the watershed is happening here at this point. And Lucy Charles Barkley, Kate McCarthy, I think, are just going to keep on increasing this if they can work together like this, and they definitely are. The other kind of factor that starts to come into play here is if a large enough group behind starts to get together, and there's a very long descent for a while. We saw a lot of time changes take place in the men's race that were not expected at all. And there's a lot of places to be made up with not a whole lot of time gaps between the groups, actually, between the Jackie Godby 4th place all the way back to what I'm seeing is about 23rd place with the Anna Svartström, Marisol Ortiz. That's only going to be about a minute between that 4th place to 23rd place. And I think with the right motivation and the large enough group that starts to pick up momentum and avalanche down this, perhaps may be able to bring back enough time here on some of these groups ahead to get within striking distance of that 23rd being a part of the conversation, actually, still.
Well, look at Kate Turden there, Nathan, sitting 24th spot. Obviously not where she wants to be. Really talented rider. I'm going to be watching that closely to see if she's able to catch that group. It was just a few seconds that she was sitting behind the group that she really needs to be in to be able to qualify for the racing in 2 weeks, back up to the front. And how about, this is going to be the Meyer group that we're in with here. Nicole Meyer and company.
That's a good call.
She has Natalie Stevenson and Marlene Bjarhed with her. So this is really the group behind Jackie Godby now that we're looking at. They are probably going to make contact with Godby that you just see now up the road here. So they've got a rabbit to chase. Godby might be better advised now. Well, I think Godby can do whatever she wants, to tell you the truth, Nathan, as either way she's going to make it into the top 23. But being joined by this group won't hurt anything for her. As a matter of fact, it'll make the ride maybe a little bit easier on the way to the finish line. No harm,
that's a good
no
point,
foul,
actually. I actually think it's in her advantage if she does
it would be.
Get that group with her.
It would make sense, I would think. I guess she's probably not going to give them any gifts either. Going to make them come get her rather than go back to them. But this is the front now, the vanguard out here. Nathan, I think this would qualify as Kate McCarthy's gold standard performance up till now. The best ride we've seen from Kate, at least that I've seen from Kate, is hanging right in there with Lucy Charles-Barclay. And not only riding with Charles Barclay, but she's been giving it as good as she gets it out here today.
Yeah, this is amazing ride by Kate McCarthy. Really good to see the level that she's bringing to the Zwift World Series. They're up by about 30 seconds now, just coming and cresting over the top of the Zwift Watopia KOM here at this point. 4.6 watts per kilogram steady, and they are still working well together. Belforth with the catch behind as we got the rider focus. Barclay still looking very, smile on the face almost, Dave. I mean, looking comfortable in the wheel. Well, maybe a little bit of concentration there for a moment here. I think Kate's really doing everything she can to put the work on with Lucy here at this point, but the two of them seem to be working really well together, and I think Lucy's actually enjoying herself, it looks to me.
It's funny, Nathan. I was thinking, I don't know if she's smiling, but she has the potential to smile, which not many folks could when they're this deep into the pain cave, and now they're up and over the top. They're not going to give anything back out here, that's for sure. Kate McCarthy looking incredibly composed as we watch them now on the descent. Looks like Godby
Belforth and
joined
Godby here now at this point.
Joined, I should say.
Yeah, Belforth, she came across and jumped up and over the top of Godby, actually dropped her for a moment, and then Godby fought back to her wheel. And then now they're actually starting to work together to hold off the Jarheed, Stevenson, and Meyer group. So nice little kick here from Emma Belforth to drop the group behind and come across, and now at this point, Godby, Belforth, all together.
All right, so updating everybody with 14.5 kilometers of racing. We're in the home stretch now on the way to the finale. As you saw in the men's race, finish line slightly different than what you might expect as we're on Ocean Boulevard, but it extends about a kilometer past. Actually, it's fair to say that that old school arch there where we've started and finished so many rides and races, Nathan, that really might as well be the 1K to go notifier. This is spots 24th to 29th, I believe, Nathan, that we're looking at now.
Vicky Whitelaw, Cassani, Brealey, Svardström, Ortiz, and Tridden is just off the back of that. She's actually sitting in 24th place. That group up ahead is all secure, I believe. I'm just going to double check that here.
You're
real
exactly
quickly.
right.
Yeah, so that Svardström group here is all secure, and they're working together, all of them, against Kate Tridden, who is solo. You can see she's got that Australian national champion kit on and looking to fight so hard right now to bring them back solo on a downhill, though, Dave. It's almost like this spot where you're like, well, I don't really want Leah Stern and Rian Denton and Laura Meyer and Elise Gallegos to catch me, but at the same time, the extra speed from a group might help me catch the group ahead to get my qualifying spot. So this group now, the big question for this group is whether or not they're actually going to work together.
Well, they have, if there was ever a group that had a reason to, I mean, so Turden is a world-class racer. The fact that she's not in that group is somewhat incredible to me. It's 11 seconds right now. So Ortiz, Sophie Giovanni, Ursula Cassani, Anna Brearley, Anna Svardström, and it looks like Vicky Whitelaw actually attacking out of that group. So, wow. I
thought they were going too slow, I think, Dave.
Yeah, which is interesting because the fact that Vicky is attacking out of that group greatly benefits Kate Turden's chances. If they're not cooperating and working together to hold her off, I really think that they're making a mistake, because if the 6 ladies or 5 ladies were willing to commit to each other and just rotate like a WTRL team time trial, they can hold off Turden. But if they fight with each other, Kate's got a much better chance of taking one of their spots at the dinner table. Really fantastic racing here. I think there's as much drama back there at 23rd and 24th than there is at the very front of the bike race, Nathan, that has Kate McCarthy and Lucy Charles Barclay in a mano battle right now. It's going to be interesting. I'm expecting, after what we've seen on the climb, that these two will be unable to drop each other on the run into the finish. I think it'll be a 2-rider sprint, Nathan.
Very quickly, I want to just highlight what we had talked about the downhills being the new uphills. Jackie Godby got a gap on Emma Belforth. And Jackie Godby is just a massive watts rider who you let her freight train away and you let any gap go, and Godby is gone. She got 8 seconds so far, and they're not even all the way down to the bottom of this hill. They only did about half of it so far. Downhills, this is exactly what we talked about earlier, Dave. If somebody knows the tactics of descending in Zwift, speed is queen out here with these racers right now.
I have to think that Jackie Godby is one of the most sophisticated Zwifters out there, Nathan. She's a smart woman who really, really gets what Zwiftcraft is all about. And she's all in for a great ride out here today. She could have gone back to that other group and easily qualified.
She's catching them, Dave.
But yeah, this is what heart is. That's what you're seeing personified on your screen right now. Is Jackie Godby is a no-quit machine. That's for sure. So yeah, I mean, she could have played it safe and easily qualified for racing coming up in Zwift World Series in 2 weeks, but she's here to race and chase, and the gap is down to 30 seconds. I don't think she brings these two back, to be honest, but she shows us how much heart she has, and I'll be surprised if Emma Belforth is able to make contact with Jackie Godby here. Talking about 3rd and 4th on course. This is Godby on our screen. She's sitting about 30 seconds. That's Belforth chasing Godby. But the 2 leaders, Barclay and McCarthy, still together. I think, again, they're going to bring this home into a 2-rider kick. We got a lot to look forward to here. Will Godby be able to hold off Belforth? That's Emma Belforth in the Super Tuck right now, just trying to recover a little bit here. One of the most dangerous breakaway artists in esports history.
Definitely, and as we do see Belforth here, we're going to watch. Does she have the good roll-through speed? Look how she gets it going before she actually hits the actual flat section. Make sure she carries the power and the speed through. Goes right up into 6 watts per kilogram, as you can see, 333 watts or so. The heart rate as low as she could possibly get it before she gets that speed going again up into that 56 kilometers per hour. Here's the chase now. We've got Yarheed behind with Meyer and Stevenson. 33 seconds back from Belforth at this point, and 1:11 back from the lead of the race. Natalie Stevenson, great ride from her out here today. Love to see it as she leads things out here for Cryo DT. The big question, I think, on the minds of many here is, where is Tiffany Penner, her teammate, the big sprinter? Has she made the cut here at this point? And actually, just behind this group of 3, Penner is in a group that's trying to hold off the Vicky Whitelaw group that is also a part of the top 23 at this point. But again, the Kate Turden situation, Kate actually, I think, has moved up here. I'm looking at a big change-up happening here in the overall, Dave.
Well, and we're going to keep an eye on that for sure. That's Penner that we're in cam with up there in Canada here. So Penner digging deep right now. That's a good look at the group that she has found here. Now, again, they're all safely within the qualifying realm, but this is going to be a real battle for placings within this group.
Yeah, and I mean, there was some pretty drastic change-ups on the live standings here at this point, and I just want to make sure because they have completely changed up at this point. Kate Turden is currently in 21st place. Somehow she has jumped a bunch of places here at this point. Ursula Cassani and Marisol Ortiz, they're actually in this bubble group of 3 with Sofia Giovanni, Ursula Cassani, and Marisol Ortiz. They're actually the ones that are battling it out behind for that 23rd.
Well, it looks like that group blew up, Nathan. as Kate Turden now is just about to make contact with Brearley. Svardström in no woman's land behind that group with Whitelaw, Marb, and Penner now up in this group with Sidlick, Lucy Gadd, who's having an incredible ride. So that was significant, and I'm not surprised, Nathan. Kate Turden, too quality of a rider to be sitting in 24th spot. So it looks like she's done a good job of righting her ship. Still got some work to do out here. We're going to go back in and pick up Jackie Godby as Belforth has made contact now. This is 3rd and 4th out on course. They're not going to catch McCarthy and Charles Barkley. Those two are good for the gold and the silver at this point. I think that's fair to say, Nathan, although we've seen some big changes here in the last 10K.
That's the thing about this race. And I'm not saying, I think you're right, 100%, Dave, about a 2v2 situation. It's these situations behind with these massive groups that are constantly changing motivation or people blowing up, not having anything left with, I mean, Vicky Whitelaw was on the bubble of 23 at one point, right? And now we're looking at Vicky Whitelaw in 17th place at 158. But behind that, we have an Elise Gallegos group in 27th to 26th and 25th, chasing the 23 group. You've got some serious firepower behind right now, trying to punch their ticket to the elite races with Denton, Stern, Gallegos on a serious chase. So definitely some interesting things happening back there. Lucy Charles Barkley, though, back to the front. And as you had said, Dave, the work is definitely being done here by these two to hold on to this 30-second gap that's now actually going out to 40 seconds. These two, solid 4.0 plus for their steady tempo at the front.
Yeah, they've really proven themselves to be the world-class athletes that they are. I think that Kate McCarthy has to be ecstatic with the performance that she's put together. And for Lucy Charles Barkley, this is just confirmation of the world-class athlete that she is. And esports certainly bringing out the best of everybody out here today as we take a look at Chase Group 4. So this is the Kasani group that we're jumping in with. So Kasani technically right now is in that
Sorry to
group.
interrupt you. I gotta highlight that. They caught Kate Turden. So she's now back on the bubble, and they're trying to keep that chase group behind from catching her.
100%. This group on your screen has spots 20 to 24 is what you're looking at right now. So 3 of these women, if the race ended right now and they started sprinting, 3 of these 4 ladies would make it into the World Series in 2 weeks. 1 gets to stay home. Though remembering that this group is not completely safe itself, Nathan, there's still riders behind them that are hoping to make contact. So it's not like they've guaranteed these 3 spots out of this group. They still got to look behind them as there's a lot of pressure coming. They most likely won't be able to catch anybody as the gap up to Tiffany Penner's group is a solid 30 seconds right now.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, isn't it, Dave? At this point, we do see that this group has a very tough spot in how they will personally race this race. They're between a rock and a hard place because if they sit up and don't work together, this group behind adds about 3 riders and some serious riders with Gallegos, Stern, and Denton. But if they work too much, they're sacrificing their energy for a sprint and one of them misses out. And the reality of the effort that Kate Turden has put in so far, Dave, I would think she really needs to reserve some energy at this point. All of them done a lot, but Kate spent so much time in no woman's land. It's only 14 seconds behind there now at this point with that group. So this isn't said and done for Rhiannon Denton, Elise Gallegos, and Leah Stern either at this point. As we're back in the front, look at how chilled things are. These two thinking about how they're going to match up against each other. What kind of moves are they going to make? Let's start to get some power profile numbers coming in here, because is it going to be a breakaway from each other or a sprint to the line?
Sprint to the line is my vote here, Nathan. It's interesting how the dynamic's so incredibly different. The confidence that you look from Lucy Charles Barkley here as they've done their work. Now they're just looking to drive that final nail home. Kate McCarthy looking to just create some magic out here today. She's already done that, to tell you the truth. So Kate McCarthy, I don't know if she comes in as the underdog, Nathan, an Iron woman, a triathlete. Now she's done both 70.3, talking about Lucy Charles Barkley. She's been world champion in both of the disciplines. But you wouldn't expect an Ironman to have much of a kick, but I find it impossible to bet against Lucy Charles-Barclay out here. But when you talk about punching above your weight, that underdog story, I love what Kate McCarthy's bringing to the table. It looks like Lucy Charles-Barclay doesn't want to leave things late, or certainly going to make it easy out here on Kate McCarthy. This is the battle royale going on at the front of the bike race for the outright win. That's qualifying spots 1 and 2. Right behind them, you can see spots 3 and 4. Those have been gobbled up by the mighty Jackie Godby and Emma Belforth. So those two danger women are going to be, they're going to have their own battle royale here. Nathan, this is like the triple Lindy. We've got 3 different races going on for you here. We've got the race for the outright win with Charles Barclay and McCarthy. Then we've got the race for the podium, the bronze medal spot between Belforth and Godby coming in hot. Then you can see riders who are going to comfortably qualify up inside the top 10. Gets really scary. When you look down at spots 20 and on, it's going to be an absolute Donnybrook out here. But this is 3.4K of racing for our 2 leaders. Nathan, can you believe how great the racing has been out here today? And this is the qualifier.
Looking here now at this group, this is the bubble group that we have been talking about. And as you can see, Breely, Kiseni, it looks like Turden and Giovanni working fairly well together. Kisani just at the front there for CryoDT for a moment. I did see Leah Stern behind, taking a pretty solid pole just a moment ago, but it's out to 14 seconds. They're keeping it right at that 14 to 15. The big question to me about the group that's right behind this group is, does someone stop working together and just try and jump across full gas and then try and sit in and sprint? I mean, because now Denton's starting to do a little work in the rider nearby list, but I don't know. It's a big question mark about this bubble here at this point.
For me, Nathan, I mean, the parallel universe scenario, who attacks out of this group to assure their spot not waiting for a sprint as well? Because I hate to say it, but that would be me, to tell you the truth, where you just get nervous, you get jumpy, sprinting out of a group of 4. It's a weird place to be. I have a feeling that group attacks itself.
Denton now doing the work. This is the chase group that's not on the bubble, but they've got them within
close.
11 seconds. They actually can almost see them. They can almost see them. And this next little switchback, in just a moment, they'll be able to see them on the upper parts of the cliff while they're about to start their climb here in just a moment. I think that they're going to close this down as Denton pushes 4.5 at the front right now. She's all in, digging right now to bring this back together. Gallegos and Stern getting a ride from Denton, the Roca Cobra rider.
Man, you push a little too hard and the bubble pops, though, Nathan. This is going to be incredible. You can see the effort now. It looks like the 3 riders just up ahead of these ladies are feeling the hot breath of the chase on their neck. This is what racing is all about. No doubt about it. So this is spots 25, 26, and 27 out on course right now.
Leah Stern, she sat in on Denton and Gallegos' Weagle. She kicked up into 10 watts per kilogram, up into that little bit of a switchback. Now she's looking to go across. She's about to join that main bubble group that has, it looks like Tridden, Giovanni. It's going to be Ortiz and Casani just ahead by 5 seconds. Gallegos is trying to close it down right behind her. Denton, after all that work, was used up by Stern. Gallegos almost back on terms. Will they make contact? This is for the last qualifying spot right here, right now. This is a race moment as Denton goes over the top of Gallegos to try and make contact with Stern, but will they sit up? They cannot sit up now. It's only 6 seconds up, and those ladies up ahead are only doing 3.4 now at this point as Stern comes over the top with speed.
Man, I tell you what, Stern did not help the chances for the other ladies in this group when she went out on her own. It's every woman for herself. Nathan, when's the last time you saw a bike race that had this much excitement around 23rd place? This is what the Zwift World Series is all about. Let's go back and pick up our leaders now. That's going to be Lucy Charles-Barclay on the front. We're about less than 1K from the finish. Can Kate McCarthy pull a rabbit out of the hat, get a massive win out here. Boy, Nathan, this is going to be incredible. So we're going to line this one up. Lucy and Kate fighting for the gold out here on Watopia.
Very evenly matched on their watts per kilogram when it comes to a pure sprint, actually right around 10 to 11 or so, as I think is what we're going to see from them. Maybe a little bit more perhaps on a special occasion here. Lucy Charles Barkley leading things out. Is the Zwiftcraft going to play a role here? Who's got the better Zwiftcraft? You know, Lucy Charles Barkley, she's a Zwifter for sure. She's been racing for a long time out on Zwift, actually. So is she just going to lead things out, though, here? And, you know, on a downhill and these little bit of a course, going to be interesting, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a stone-cold killer she is when it comes to sprints, that's for sure, but we have been watching her Zwifting since the get-go. She's going to go early, so Lucy Charles Barkley hits out. This is an all-in effort. Kate's not done. Kate McCarthy's going to get the wheel, and this should be good for the win. Kate McCarthy taking the W out here in Watopia. That is a sweet victory for the New Zealander, Nathan.
The patience paid off from Kate McCarthy and takes it down. What a win out here today. Lucy Charles Barkley settles in for second, but still a massive effort from both of them out there. Jackie Godby, Emma Belfour. I think Godby should be the shoo-in for this one, I would think. Would have the watts as well as the kick up against Belfour, but we'll see as Godby opens up. There it is, 12 watts per kilogram. It's a little bit of a no problem across the line because that's the reality there. Belfort, I think, more the threshold rider, and Godby, you go to the line with her, it's going to be a tough one. Now, Marlene Garheed, Nada Seasington, and Nicole Meyer, that's the situation in front of us now, a 3-up.
I will say watch out for Emma Belforth 2 weeks from now, Nathan. She's going to be a huge part of that conversation. We're going to turn our attention to 5, 6, and 7. These are all qualifiers here now. Again, we're going to go 23 deep, keeping an eye on that. But it's like watching soldiers coming home from the war out here. Nobody had an easy day. There's no peloton left, Nathan. Largest group, probably this. This is your peloton, actually. This is the group sprint.
Yahid Stevenson. Yeah, and it's going to be Meyer, it looks like here, that's got the better of them as far as positioning goes. But is that going to equal out? It will. It looks like here. End up being, actually, Varheed, excuse me. Nice little kick there from Varheed. She was the well-positioned one. Now one last kick here, it looks like, coming in to the finish line. Leonie Harper holding off Joanna Kalman. She looks like she went from the 1K to go or something like that. Now, this is the spots we really need to start paying attention to as we get further down the line. Plenty still going on here, but just about a K out from the finish is going to be that bubble that we've been talking about over and over again. But still, Engstrom and Lucy Gadd coming through for 11th and 12th.
All right, congratulations, ladies, as well earned out here today on Watopia. We're going to keep watching. This is going to be a big group. This is going to gobble up a lot of spots out here, Nathan, in our top 23. So, oh boy, it's going to be close. It looks like Kate Turden's going to get in there. Oh boy.
Well, here we go with Breeley. Now, Turden, she's right here. It's going to be Breeley off the front from that group. So she's going to get that 20th spot. But then 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th are behind. Now, they ended up with a solid 12 seconds, though. Yeah, still a solid 12 seconds here over that chase group containing Elise Gallegos and a few others. I don't think they're going to be making the catch. It's just a little bit too much at this point as Denton and the others sat up a tad.
Yeah, Nathan, that scenario, it looks like 4 riders are going to be sprinting for the 3 spots. It keeps going back and forth, looking for that surge out of the group. Cassani, Turden, Giovanni, and Ortiz all in this conversation now. Heartbreaking for one. Ecstatic for the others.
Yeah. Huge ride by Turden to get back on terms. Then it's going to be Cassani, then Ortiz, and Sophie Giovanni's going to be the rider who just misses out, it looks like. And this was the chase from Leah Stern, Gallegos, and Denton to the line. Stern's going to get the better of Denton, and Gallegos. So nicely done there, but they kind of gave up the ghost a little bit, didn't they there, Dave? When it came to that chase, they kind of started looking at each other after that stern attack. Maybe just nothing left in the tank as Meyer kicks to the line.
Yeah, the dynamics out here, Nathan, were crazy today. No doubt about it. Really hard tactically for these riders that were fighting in those spots between 10th and 30th to figure out exactly what to do. We're going to finish these ladies across the line. Fantastic racing today.
Absolutely. Really, really good racing. Loved to see the battle. Now, it was pretty calm, when it came to most of the racing until we saw the grade. Up front, we did see a couple of kicks. I liked that Lucy Charles Barkley threw down right from the get-go. The traditional Zwift start a lot of times is what people will be thinking about, and coming back into the elite racing scene, most likely thinking, but the elite races sometimes start a little bit slower nowadays, especially when you got something like the grade coming up in the near future.
Yeah, what a phenomenal experience for all of our athletes, I have to think, is that truly was a battle royale when you look at the men's and the women's race. This is what the spirit of the Zwift World Series was looking for. Really competitive racing. And again, just to reiterate, the pathway for athletes that are new to Zwift and esports racing has really become clear if you want to race at the highest level. Today was a great example of that. We saw some new names, some old favorites, some mega stars from the world of triathlon. I feel like we're firing on all cylinders here.
I absolutely love this idea of everybody earning their spot at the top level as well. And, the way that we've said it over and over again, the process that anybody can get involved. And I think what we just saw, with Kate McCarthy, that perfect example, going up against Lucy Charles Barkley to the line. So cool to see, and how this format had opened up the opportunity to have that moment. Really, really great result out there for McCarthy. And it looks like we're going to have some results here coming up here, and take a look at how things ended up playing out and who got through for the qualifier for the elite races for your top 23.
Yeah, exciting racing all the way through our field there. And on top of the table, this has to go down as a career-defining win for the New Zealander, Kate McCarthy. Kate, congratulations. You showed tremendous heart out here today. Lucy Charles Barkley, great to have you racing with us. Talk about classing up the place. Well, she'll take the silver medal today. Jackie Godby, she also, Nathan, really deserves special note as what a fighter Jackie is. So Jackie Godby in for the bronze as she goes to the line with the Swedish breakaway artist Emma Belfort, who brought a lot to the table out here. Sweden puts two up in the top five as Marlene Bjarhed has a great ride in fifth. The Scottish woman, Natalie Stevenson, shows tremendous talent in sixth, with the American Nicole Meyer in at seventh. It's Leonie Harper for eighth today. The Polish rider Joanna Kalman in for ninth, and then Roberta Bussione rounds out our top 10. We got 10 more qualifiers on the next page for you, Nathan.
Cornelia Engstrom, followed up by the big sprinter Tiffany Penner. And then it's going to be Anna Svardstrom and Vicky Whitelaw with an awesome attack downhill, really solidifying herself within that top 15. Christine Schneider, followed up by Emilia Velte, Maria Marb, and then Stephanie Sidlick, Lucy Gadd, and Anna Breeley. That's your top 20, but now it is that top 23 that we're really looking toward here, Dave.
Yeah, this was so exciting to watch. Kate really stepped up when it mattered, found her way into 21st place as the Australian Kate Turton. It's going to be Ursulia Kisani in at 22nd, and the final spot was claimed by Marisol Ortiz. A huge ride for her. I'd call it a breakthrough performance when you know how much was on the line. And then hearts going out to Sophie Giovanni. Sophie in 24th place today, but there's certainly going to be some great results coming up in her future, as there's a lot of talent there. Swiss rider Leah Stern in for 25th. Elise Gallegos in at 26th today. Rianne Denton in 27th. 27th, Lara Meyer for 28th, Marcel Smithers in 29th, and then Sarah London rounds out our top 30. Nathan, it doesn't get much better than what we had out here today.
Annie Poland just not making it. Oh, tough one for Annie. Em Nyquist as well as Brittany Litton. Sarah Roach in 34th. Yossi Rossignol in 35th. Leah Sophie Rammer in 36th, followed up by Jessica Edquist in 37th. Maria T. Thompson in 39th. In 38th. Sarah Olam in 39th. And Hannah Dano running out the top 40 out here today. Well, we've got our qualifiers, Dave, that have made it through on our provisional results at this point for the top 23. I want to give a big shout out for the pickup for Saris there with Marissa Ortiz fighting for that, as well as Kate Turden. I mean, those two rides, I really am impressed actually by them and the way that Kate fought, because, you know, you could, with 10 seconds off the back, a group up ahead, a group chasing you behind, you could throw in the towel. And the reality is Kate said, no, I'm not doing that. I've got the ability here, put her head down and did the work.
Yeah, it's interesting, Nathan. You don't always have to look at the podium to find the inspiring rides, and Marisol would absolutely qualify as that. You know, esports really, it seems to me like it distills down the passion and the intensity in sport. That was an hour and a couple minutes of racing for those women, and I felt like we saw it all out there. We saw some very brave performances. I don't know that anybody has much left in the tank after that. The men and the women, as they say in Gladiator, were you not entertained? And this is what's amazing to me, Nathan. That was the qualifier. We've got more to look forward to in 2 weeks with more prize money, the preems, the highly coveted spots in the series. So everything on the line coming up on the same course in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and that's when it's really all going to pop off. You qualify for the big race, but then when you make it to the big race, what do you have to shine at that point? And, you know, it'll be interesting to see those top riders that we saw in that top 10, how are they going to shake up against the top esports riders in the world? Are they going to prove their mettle? Are they going to show that, look, this is where I belong? I went through this pathway, but that pathway was to land me somewhere, that this is where I belong. Or are you going to go back to the qualifier and keep on trying to go from strength to try and make your delivery maybe at a later date? But that's the cool thing, is we get to see the process and the narrative of all this space of finding the best esports riders in the world.
And what do you want to bet that Lucy Charles-Barclay completely changes the game in 2 weeks of racing as well? That dynamic is going to be something that a lot of women weren't anticipating here in the World Series. And for everybody who loves this sport, it's good news across the board.
Let's take a quick look over to a few of the replays of how things actually played out throughout the race right from the get-go. We did see Lucy Charles-Barclay make some moves, but here we've got the moves from Emma Belforth on the front as she's marked very closely by Charles-Barclay as well as Jackie Godby. There's Kate McCarthy also in the conversation. Bassoni was here early on, but unable to stay with the pace set by the main four that start to really show themselves at the top of this first section of the grade. And you can see the separation. Now, Godby actually took the front of this early on as they hit this flatter section, but then later on it was McCarthy and Charles-Barclay that made the second kick over the top of the switchbacks. They eliminated the rest of the pack, made their way all the way to the top of the climb, and were gone from here on out. Godby made a pretty valiant effort to try and bring them back, but was unable to do so. Here's that sprint setup, though, and with the saving of the drafting power-up sitting in the draft as well, with only two up, it was going to be the rider that usually came out from behind the wheels, and there's the in-real-life sprint. Love to see the kick to the line, and probably a lot of elation at this moment, as she also gets the, it looks like, little achievement in game, finishing the route out here today. There's the Kate Turden ride. Love to see it as she took down that last spot as it was the bubble that she was on off the back outside of 23rd for quite a while, fights back to the group that makes that bubble and sprints for a qualification. The rides of the day, I'll give it rides of the day. The wins, absolutely amazing. Huge for Kate McCarthy. That, I got to say, is a monumental effort and result for her. But I got to say, that heart from Kate after being out the back and then fighting her way back in, as well as the others that were kind of on that bubble, that's also a really valiant effort where you can see it and you can taste it, and then you finally end up getting that qualifying spot when it was just maybe out of reach, Dave.
Yeah, my ride of the day, Nathan, goes to the entire peloton, to tell you the truth. There was no quarter asked for and no quarter given. That's how you race. I mean, it would have been easy for a lot of those women to say, well, that ship sailed. We don't need to chase back Barkley and McCarthy. Not one woman threw in the towel out there through that entire really tough race. We really found a great day of racing here with our qualifiers. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, well, we now have qualifiers for the men and the women from the Open Qualifier race number 2. And these racers will be joining the Elite race in 2 weeks' time on October 17th. They'll be racing against the series pass riders, those who had them at the start of the series and those who earned them in Elite race number 1. But that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for joining for some amazing racing in this second event of the Zwift World Series. Again, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time for the Elite race. We can't wait to see you all again. From Dave and I, as always, ride on.